Chapter 22. I have something to tell everyone. I have made some changes from Chapter 20 to Chapter 22. Everyone can go back and take a look. The overall direction has not changed, but the plot has been slightly adjusted. In addition, the azure-clothed man in Chapter 22 has been changed to a blue-clothed youth. Only the color of his clothes has been changed because I feel that the words azure-clothed youth are a bit awkward to pronounce. So, I apologize here for causing trouble for everyone. Some people were like this. When they were torturing others, they felt very excited and had a sense of accomplishment. However, when the situation was reversed, they felt that it was too cruel. Lin Tian obviously would not show mercy to such people. You, don't mess around. If you treat us like this, young Master Zhou will not let you go. The blue-clothed youth said with a trembling voice. Lin Tian said with disdain, "You speak as if you will let me go if I don't hurt you." He lifted his right leg and mercilessly stepped on the blue-clothed youth's arm. Ah! The blue-clothed youth screamed miserably. His face was twisted in pain. Lin Tian was expressionless as he stepped on the blue-clothed youth's other arm. Ah! The screams continued. Like the man in embroidered clothes, the blue-clothed youth's arms and left leg were crippled. Damn it! Damn it! Young Master Zhou will avenge us. He will definitely kill you. The blue-clothed youth roared crazily. His arms and left leg were crippled. He did not know how many elixirs and herbs he would need to use to recover. Is that so? Then I really have to congratulate you. I was scared by your words. Lin Tiantin glanced at the blue-clothed youth. He lifted his leg again and ruthlessly stepped on the blue-clothed youth's right leg. So, this is your reward. With a crack, the blue-clothed youth's last leg was broken. Ah! The blue-clothed youth screamed miserably. This time, the pain was so painful that he fainted. Lin Tiantin glanced at this person indifferently and turned to leave. It wasn't that he wanted to let it go, but the Nanyang martial house prohibited disciples from killing each other. These two people came with the intention of crippling his arms and legs. Now that he had crippled their arms and legs, even if the martial house questioned him, he would still be in the right. However, if he killed these two people here, it would be difficult for him to escape the martial house's punishment. When Lin Tian returned home, the sky was completely dark. Sushu was playing with Lin Shi. Brother! Seeing that Lin Tian had returned, Lin Shi immediately went to greet her happily. Lin Tian smiled and rubbed the little girl's head affectionately. Thanks. He looked at Sushu and said. It was already so late, but Sushu was still here with Lin Shi, which made him very grateful. Why are you thanking me? Don't mention it. Sushu shook her head, blinked her eyes, and said, That's right. How's your martial skill cultivation, especially that shocking wind sword art? To what extent have you cultivated it? Lin Tian scratched the back of his head and said with a smile, It's okay. Sushu puffed up her cheeks. What do you mean it's okay? How far have you cultivated it? Just say it. I won't make fun of you. After thinking for a while, she said, However, with your martial Dao talent, you should be many times stronger than the average person. At least you have comprehended 20% of the shocking wind sword art's first move. Seeing Lin Tian scratching the back of his head, Sushu thought that Lin Tian's cultivation was not smooth, so he was embarrassed to speak. A what? Say it. Sushu said angrily. Lin Tian blushed with shame. This girl was like a little tiger when she was fierce. The shadow fist of the shadow fire fist has been cultivated to perfection, and the shocking wind sword art's first move has been cultivated to perfection. He said, The shadow fist of the shadow fire fist has been cultivated to perfection, and the shocking wind sword art's first move has been cultivated to perfection, and it's already very good. Sushu nodded. Suddenly, her face changed. What did you say? The shocking wind sword art's first move has been cultivated to perfection. She stared at Lin Tian with her eyes wide open. What kind of joke is this? That 6-star genius in the martial house also took 20 days to cultivate the first move to perfection. Even if you were a 9-star genius, it can't be so exaggerated, right? How can you cultivate the first move to perfection in a few hours? Forget about the shadow fire fist, but the shocking wind sword art was famous for being difficult to cultivate. Even her master was somewhat helpless when facing this sword art. But Lin Tian on the other hand, cultivated the first move to perfection in a few hours, which made her feel incredulous. Seeing Sushu's expression of disbelief, Lin Tian's aura changed, and a sharp sword intent suddenly spread out. Sushu was moved again. The sword intent that Lin Tian displayed at this moment was indeed the manifestation of the shocking wind sword art's first move to perfection. Sushu was very clear about this because her master, Mu Qing, had once displayed this move for her. He actually really cultivated it to perfection. She muttered. Lin Tian dispersed the sword intent, shrugged, and said, "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" Sushu stared at Lin Tian, and after a long while, she squeezed out 2 words from between her teeth. Abnormal. Cultivating the first move of the shocking wind sword art to perfection in a few hours. This was simply a monster among monsters. Lin Tian was speechless and said, "Please don't say it like that. There are many meanings of abnormal, especially when these 2 words come out from a girl's mouth. It's very easy to misunderstand." Sushu was slightly stunned, but in the next second, she reacted, and her beautiful face suddenly became red. "Rogue!" Fiercely kicking Lin Tian's foot, Sushu angrily ran away. Lin Tian smiled. This naughty and narcissistic girl actually knew how to be shy. It was already late at night. Lin Tian closed the door and accompanied Lin Shi to talk for a while. He told Lin Shi a few stories about his hometown, which made the little girl giggle and soon fell asleep. Dotingly looking at his little sister who was sleeping soundly, Lin Tian carefully closed the door and left. He came to the top of the pavilion, took a deep breath, and began to cultivate the 4 extreme scripture. The 4 extreme scripture was very mysterious. It could attract the power of the stars to refine his body, so every night he would cultivate the 4 extreme scripture. Wong! Faint silver light poured down, entering Lin Tian's body. Lin Tianyi repeatedly operated the 4 extreme scripture, using the true yuan to guide the starlight into his bones, repeatedly refining them. This process was very painful, but after the previous experience, Lin Tian had already mentally prepared himself, so he didn't mind. Very quickly, an hour passed. The starlight falling from the sky became thin. Lin Tian opened his eyes, moved his body, and stood up. Sushu was right. After the 5th layer of body refinement, the difficulty of cultivation really increased a lot. Lin Tian said to himself, the body refinement realm was divided into 9 layers, and the 5th layer was the dividing point. Simply put, the difficulty of cultivating from the 5th layer to the 9th layer of body refinement was far greater than that from the 1st layer to the 5th layer of body refinement. This was also the reason why once a martial artist reached the 5th layer of body refinement, they must have a cultivation method to continue advancing. In 3 months, I will have to fight with the 9th layer of body refinement Zhou Hao, but according to my current cultivation speed, in 3 months, I will not be able to reach the 9th layer of body refinement realm. Even the 8th layer of body refinement realm would be difficult. Lin Tian frowned. A 9-star talent was very monstrous, but no matter how monstrous it was, it still needed time to cultivate. If there wasn't enough time, how could one become strong? One had to know that the later layers of body refinement realm were not as easy to cultivate as the first 5 layers. 3 months of time did not sound short, but he still needed to rest, he still needed to spend time practicing his martial skills, and sometimes he even needed to attend classes. In this way, there was not much time to cultivate in these 3 months. Thinking of this, Lin Tian could not help but fall in a deep thought. How could he quickly become strong? In this loft, Lin Tian thought bitterly for half an hour, but still did not have any clues, and finally could only give up. Forget it. When the boat reaches the bridge, it will naturally straighten out. Let's rest first. He shook his head. The next morning, Lin Tian woke up early, facing the morning sun and breathing. The plan of the day is in the morning. Lin Tian, who had lived 2 lives, was very clear on this principle. For ordinary people, the morning air was very clear, and breathing more of the morning air was good for health and could slow down aging. For martial artists, the spirit energy of heaven and earth was richer in the morning, which was very beneficial for cultivation. After an hour of breathing, Lin Tian felt that his essence energy, and spirit had become slightly stronger. "All right," he muttered to himself and walked towards the lecture area of the Nine-Yong Martial House. Today was the first day of lectures in the Nine-Yong Martial House since the beginning of this year's enrollment. It could be considered as an official start. Lin Tian felt that it was better to attend today's lecture. Moreover, he did not have much understanding of the path of cultivation, so it was necessary to occasionally listen to the Martial House's instructor's insights. When he arrived at the lecture area, there were already many people sitting in the lecture hall. There were about 200 people. Not only were there new disciples, but there were also some old disciples. Lin Tian did not mind and casually found a seat to sit down. The lecture hall of the Nine-Yong Martial House was very big, and because there were many people, it was a bit noisy. Lin Tian closed his eyes and sat in an inconspicuous corner, quietly waiting for the instructors to arrive. At the same time, he was thinking about how to cultivate. 3 months of time included cultivation, rest, and practicing martial skills. In the end, he had to reach the 8th layer of body refinement before he could fight with Zhou Hao. This was a big problem. After about half an hour, the lecture hall suddenly quieted down. "The instructor is here," a voice said. Lin Tian raised his head and saw an old man with a white beard walk in. He was wearing a gray robe. Lin Tian felt a little and found that the old man's cultivation was much lower than Mu Qing and Sherdong's. He was probably at the early stage of the divine pulse realm. The old man coughed twice and slowly said, "For the next year, I will be in charge of teaching you. I will only talk about theories, insights, and some cultivation techniques. Of course, I will also talk about things outside of traditional martial arts." When the old man finished speaking, some of the new disciples were puzzled. "Things outside of traditional martial arts? What is that?" Someone whispered. In the last row of the lecture hall, a courageous disciple stood up and said, "Instructor, what do you mean by things outside of traditional martial arts? Can you tell us?" This was a young man with a strong build. Although he was bold, he was very polite. There was a lot of discussion in the lecture hall. Lin Tian couldn't help but be curious. Everyone who stepped on the road of cultivation knew about traditional martial arts. It referred to simple cultivation techniques, and martial skills. This was traditional martial arts cultivation. Few people knew about things outside of traditional martial arts. Now that they suddenly heard the old man say such a sentence, most of the people here were curious. Seeing that most of the disciples were staring at him, the old man nodded and said, "Well, I should have talked about the cultivation techniques of traditional martial arts first. But since you want to know about things outside of traditional martial arts, there is no other way." The old man said and slowly took out a thin book from his arms and said, "Look here." The book in the old man's hand was very old. The pages were yellow and there were many strange patterns drawn on it. "What is this?" Many people were puzzled. Lin Tian also looked at the thin book in the old man's hand. Looking at the strange patterns on the pages, his face suddenly changed slightly. "That is, P.S. Thank you for the 10,000 support of the Chrysanthemum Remnant Brothers. Thank you." Chapter 23. This was not the first time Lin Tian had seen the strange patterns on the thin book the old man had taken out. Not long ago, when the iron sword entered his body, many things appeared in his mind, and among them were the existence of similar patterns. These patterns are... Lin Tian was a little surprised. Like him, the other disciples in the lecture hall were also puzzled. The elder closed the book and slowly said, "These are array patterns." Array patterns? Someone was puzzled. Array patterns are the result of countless years of research by array manipulators, and the so-called array manipulators are outside of the traditional martial arts. The elder continued, "Array manipulators can use their true yuan and some special materials to create martial arts scrolls that ordinary people can use. They can also inscribe spirit-gathering array patterns to increase a martial artist's cultivation speed. They can also inscribe spirit-gathering array patterns on weapons to increase the power of weapons. Legend has it that the best array manipulators can even use the power of heaven and earth to inscribe killing patterns in the void. It is extremely terrifying." Wow! As the elder's words fell, everyone in the lecture hall was shocked. Array manipulators? That's too powerful. In the corner, Lin Tianwei was shocked and finally understood. So, the strange patterns that appeared in my mind are actually array patterns, the stuff of array manipulators. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. The elder had said many things related to array manipulators, and the one that attracted him the most was undoubtedly the fact that array manipulators could inscribe spirit-gathering arrays to increase a martial artist's cultivation speed. One should know, he was now facing the problem of how to increase his cultivation speed. Instructor, I want to become an array manipulator. Can you teach me? Me too. Instructor, I want to learn the art of array manipulation too. I want to learn too. In the lecture hall, most of the disciples were excited. The elder smiled and shook his head. He gestured with his hands, indicating for everyone to quiet down. Array manipulators have a very high status in Northern Flame Country and are the target of all the major forces. Once you become a qualified array manipulator, money, wealth, and power are all a piece of cake. The elder said, unfortunately, the requirements to become an array manipulator are too harsh. It is not something that ordinary people can achieve. Hearing this, many people were stunned. Instructor, what requirements do we need to meet to become an array manipulator? A disciple asked. In the corner, Lin Tian also pricked up his ears. This so-called array-controlling master was perhaps the only opportunity for him to reach the 9th layer of body refinement within 3 months, so he naturally had to listen attentively. The old man said, if you want to become a matrix manipulator, you have to fulfill at least 2 conditions. First, you have to have an extraordinarily powerful soul. Second, you have to have a powerful matrix manipulator as a guide to pass down the array patterns. At this point, the old man shook his head and continued. Within the Northern Flame Kingdom, the number of people who can reach the level of array manipulator is so rare that 1 in 10,000 is less than 1 in 10,000. Furthermore, array manipulators almost never pass on array inscriptions to outsiders. Thus, it is extremely difficult to become an array manipulator. The old man spat out the word difficult 3 times in a row, causing many people to be stunned. Let's not talk about soul power for now. Instructor, don't you have a rune in your hand? A disciple whispered. Hearing this, many people looked at the old man. The old man waved the book in his hand and said, these patterns were just casually drawn by a few array manipulators. Then, they were imprinted by some people who didn't understand them. They don't have any charm. There's no value in studying them. I see. Many disciples were disappointed. Seeing these people's reaction, the old man smiled and said, you don't have to be so disappointed. If you want to become a qualified matrix manipulator, other than the first 2 conditions, you also need a lot of money. This is because when a matrix manipulator practices carving inscriptions, it requires a lot of precious materials. Normal people can't afford it. Of course, once you become a qualified matrix manipulator, you can make some martial skill scrolls and sell them for a good price. It's easy to make money. Hearing the old man's words, the disciples looked forward to becoming a matrix manipulator even more. Of course, they were even more disappointed because the conditions to become a matrix manipulator were too harsh. No matter what it was shockingly difficult. It was enough to make people despair. All right, don't think too much about it. Practicing martial arts is the right way to go, the old man said. Many people smiled embarrassedly and quieted down. For them, becoming a matrix manipulator was too far away. They started to listen to the old man's explanation about traditional martial arts. In the corner, Lin Tian clenched his fists. His eyes flashed. Matrix manipulator, so that's how it is. This class lasted for a total of 2 hours. After 2 hours, the old man announced the end of the class. Lin Tian immediately walked out of the lecture hall and headed back to his residence in the martial house. After returning to his residence, he directly closed himself in and began to browse through the mysterious inscriptions that had appeared in his mind not long ago. In 3 months, when he fought with Zhou Hao, he needed to at least reach the 8th rank of body refinement. There was not enough time. If he became a matrix manipulator, he could increase his cultivation speed by carving spirit-gathering arrays. This was undoubtedly what he needed the most right now. There was another point. A martial artist's cultivation required a lot of resources, such as pills and artifacts. If he could become a matrix manipulator, he would be able to earn a lot of money. Naturally, he would be able to buy high-quality pills and artifacts. Therefore, no matter what, he had to become a matrix manipulator. Closing his eyes, Lin Tian began to fuse the strange inscriptions in his mind. In an instant, lines of divine inscriptions flashed, mixed with a profound charm. It was as if sharp blades were slicing at his head. It was so painful that he almost screamed out loud. This process lasted for a total of 6 hours. It was only in the afternoon that Lin Tian opened his eyes. It hurt so much. He held his head, feeling that his vision was blurred. His head was splitting. But even so, Lin Tian was still very excited. After fusing the strange inscriptions in his mind, he found many inscriptions. Among them, there was the spirit gathering array that the old man had mentioned. Most importantly, the spirit gathering array was only the most basic of all inscriptions. Spirit gathering array, martial fusion array, strength array, trap array, illusion array, killing array, Lin Tian mumbled to himself. He rubbed his head and shook it violently. There were simply too many divine runes gushing into his mind. From the most basic spirit-gathering rune to the most advanced killing rune, each and every rune stacked together in his mind. Under his deliberate attempt to merge them all together, it felt like his head was about to explode. After another 2 hours, Lin Tian finally felt better. After 8 hours, Lin Tian had a rough understanding of how to cultivate as a matrix manipulator. As for the requirements to become a matrix manipulator, Lin Tian knew that his soul force had already met the requirements. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to sort out the inscriptions in his mind. And on those inscriptions, he could clearly sense a vast amount of divine essence. He could definitely use it to comprehend them. The first step to cultivating as a matrix manipulator was to create scrolls. Scrolls were usually made with parchment paper. This step was relatively simple. After that, it would be the second step. This step was to buy materials and use them to create the ink used to inscribe the inscriptions. The ink could be obtained by grinding medicinal herbs. Sometimes it would also require the blood of some high-grade demonic beasts. After creating the scrolls and ink, one could use their true essence to inscribe the inscriptions onto the scrolls and create some finished products. This step was the final step and also the most difficult one. Normally, for a matrix manipulator who had just started cultivating, it was already considered not bad if they could succeed in creating 1 out of 10 scrolls. Other than the third step, the second step was also extremely easy to fail. And once one failed, the materials would be wasted, and so would the money. It was also because of this that the cultivation of a matrix manipulator was extremely costly. Ordinary people would find it hard to support the expenditure of materials and money during the cultivation process. Let's take a look at the spirit gathering array first. Lin Tian was slightly agitated. He scanned through the materials needed to create the spirit gathering array and subconsciously recited, Soul Tooth Grass, Golden Armor Root, 3rd grade Demonic Beast Spirit Fire Ape's Blood. These materials, gradually, Lin Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. Putting aside the Soul Tooth Grass and Golden Armor Root, he could still afford them. However, the blood of the Class 3 Demonic Beast Spirit Fire Ape and the other 2 materials were frighteningly expensive. Each of them would cost him dozens of spirit coins. After calculating, he would have to spend 100 spirit coins to make a spirit gathering array scroll. Taking into account the possibility of failure, he would have to spend at least 1,000 spirit coins to buy the materials. Only then would he be able to barely make a spirit gathering array scroll. This is too expensive. Spirit coins were the common currency of the Northern Flame country. It was said that they were made from the residue of some kind of origin spirit mine. For an ordinary person, 1 spirit coin was enough to maintain their normal livelihood for a month. Lin Tian counted. He only had about 30 spirit coins on him. He couldn't even afford the materials needed to create a spirit gathering array. Thinking of this, Lin Tian suddenly felt a headache coming on. Looks like I can only borrow money. Lin Tian said helplessly. What? 1,000 spirit coins? What do you need so much money for? Sushu stared at Lin Tian. 1,000 spirit coins, even for a direct disciple of a martial house elder like her, was a large sum of money. To buy something? Lin Tian said embarrassedly. In the Nine-Sun martial house, the only people he was familiar with were Sushu, Mu Qing, and Sherdong. The latter two were martial house elders. How could he have the nerve to borrow money from an elder? After thinking about it, he could only ask Sushu for help. Speaking of which, this was the first time he borrowed money from a girl in his 2 lives. What do you need to buy that you need so much money? Sushu asked. Lin Tian scratched the back of his head and said, "This is a secret. I can't tell you for now." Secret? Sushu stared at Lin Tian and suddenly puffed up her cheeks. Lin Tianyi was embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Sushu snorted. In the end, she didn't make things difficult for Lin Tian and gave Lin Tianyi 1,000 spirit coins. "Thank you. I will return the money to you as soon as possible," Lin Tian promised. Chapter 24. The E-Treasure Pavilion was the biggest place to sell materials in Fengjian City. At the same time, it was also the only auction house in Fengjian City. Ordinary elixirs, immortal herbs, and artifacts could be obtained from the E-Treasure Pavilion. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had enough spirit coins. The E-Treasure Pavilion had existed in Fengjian City for a very long time. It had appeared almost at the same time as the Nanyang Martial House. There were rumors that the E-Treasure Pavilion was supported by a mysterious big family that had some connections with the imperial family. It was also because of this that no one in Fengjian City dared to have any ideas about the E-Bao Pavilion, even though the profits of the E-Bao Pavilion were astonishing. Some powerful cultivators were also willing to cooperate with the E-Bao Pavilion. Whenever they needed something, they would often come to the E-Bao Pavilion to purchase it. If there was something that they didn't need for the time being, they would hand it over to the E-Bao Pavilion to auction. Of course, after that, the E-Bao Pavilion would collect 30% of the auction price as a reward. Lin Tian walked on the streets of Fengjian City. The huge black robe covered his face, but it still made his body look slender. The current Lin Tian. Even if Lin Shi came, it would still be difficult for him to recognize him. "It's very safe," Lin Tian thought to himself. It was no wonder that he was so careful. He had killed Mo's son, and the Mo clan was a famous martial artist family in Fengjian City. Although it was far from being comparable to the Nanyang Martial House, it was still a huge force to him. For the sake of safety, Lin Tian had to be careful. Soon, Lin Tian arrived in front of the E-Treasure Pavilion. He raised his head and looked around. The E-Treasure Pavilion was extremely luxurious, giving off a feeling of a jade palace. Standing in front of it, one couldn't help but feel small. There were a few powerful guards standing guard in front of the E-Treasure Pavilion. Under the watchful eyes of these guards, Lin Tian walked into the E-Treasure Pavilion. The interior of the E-Treasure Pavilion was very spacious. Just like the exterior, the interior of the E-Treasure Pavilion was also dazzling and magnificent. So luxurious. Lin Tian was secretly shocked. The E-Bao Pavilion was divided into 2 sections. One section was for the sale of precious weapons, dawn, and materials. The other section was for the auction of rare treasures. Lin Tian stood in the middle of the E-Bao Pavilion and casually looked in the direction of the auction. He found that there were many people there, and all of them were wearing bright clothes. Obviously, they were all very rich. Lin Tian shook his head and turned to walk away. Right at this moment, a voice sounded from the direction of the auction hall. A formation-controlling master has delivered a martial fusion rune scroll of a middle-grade body refinement martial skill. Tell the auctioneer now. Right away. Lin Tian's footsteps paused. He couldn't help but turn around and look again. After absorbing some of the information in his mind, Lin Tian knew what a martial fusion rune scroll was. This martial fusion rune scroll was a scroll created by an array manipulator after they had drawn a fusion rune and merged the power of their martial skills into the rune. It was the so-called martial fusion rune scroll. Even an ordinary person would be able to display powerful martial skills while holding such a scroll. Of course, each martial fusion rune scroll could only be used once. Lin Tian came here to buy materials to cultivate as an array manipulator. Now that he suddenly heard something related to array manipulators, he naturally paid attention. A martial fusion rune scroll of a middle-grade body, refinement martial skill? In the direction of the auction hall, the person in charge of the Bao pavilion was moved when he heard this. He immediately walked towards the second floor of the Bao pavilion. At the same time, some people who came and went revealed shocked expressions. Many people became excited and quickly walked into the auction hall. Obviously, this was all related to the martial fusion rune scroll. Seeing such a scene, Lin Tian was a little surprised. The items made by array manipulators were so sought after. He was startled on the spot and then shook his head. Let's buy materials first. Originally, Lin Tian wanted to go to the auction hall to take a look. However, to enter the auction hall, the entrance fee was 50 spirit coins. With his current financial situation, 50 spirit coins entrance fee was a little exaggerated. After a slight pause, he walked towards the material sales area of the Bao pavilion. Hello, may I ask what you need? A beautiful woman greeted him. Because Lin Tian wanted to cultivate as an array manipulator, the materials he needed to purchase were more expensive. The places that sold these expensive materials were usually greeted by a receptionist. Looking at Lin Tian's slightly strange attire, the receptionist frowned slightly. However, she quickly put on a professional smile. There were many people coming and going in the Bao pavilion every day. It was not the first time she saw someone with such a special attire. Lin Tiandao said, "Give me 10 sets of each of these things." As he spoke, he handed over a list. Before coming to the Bao pavilion, he had already listed out the things he needed. The receptionist took the list and subconsciously read it out. Parchment, soul tooth grass, blood of the third-grade demonic beast, spirit fire, ape, frost-breaking stone. When she read this, the receptionist revealed a surprised expression. Her expression changed slightly as she looked at Lin Tian with a touch of respect. "You're an array manipulator? You know about array manipulators?" The receptionist said politely, "I don't know much about it. It's just that the auction house over there has auctioned a few array manipulator works, so I know a little bit about them." "I see." Lin Tian's heart moved as he asked, "When I came here just now, the auction house seemed to have received a middle-grade body refinement level martial fusion pattern scroll. If it were to be auctioned, how much would the final auction price be?" It was said that array manipulators earn money as easily as drinking water and eating. I wanted to know more. A middle-grade body refinement level martial fusion pattern scroll? The receptionist was a little surprised, but she quickly readjusted her attitude and said, "A middle-grade body refinement level martial fusion pattern scroll was auctioned once before. At that time, the transaction price was about 3,000 spirit coins." Hearing this price, Lin Tian was shocked. 3,000 spirit coins? This was simply daylight robbery. However, after being surprised, Lin Tian couldn't help but become excited. The works of an array manipulator were actually so expensive. If he could successfully become an array manipulator, wouldn't spirit coins roll in? At that time, artifacts, elixirs, and so on would no longer be a problem. Taking a deep breath, Lin Tiandao said, "All right, how about this? I don't need the materials just now for the time being. I'll make a change. Help me prepare these things. Parchment, leaf flower root scripture, level 2 black demon wolf's bone marrow, spirit fragrance sulfur." Lin Tian originally planned to directly create the spirit gathering pattern, but at this moment, he suddenly changed his mind. Although the spirit gathering pattern and the martial fusion pattern were the most basic formation patterns, the spirit gathering pattern was of a higher level than the martial fusion pattern. The materials required were also slightly more precious, and the difficulty of inscribing them was naturally higher. After comprehensive consideration, Lin Tian planned to first create a martial fusion pattern scroll and then auction the finished product at the treasure pavilion. After that, he would have the money to repay Sushu and could also keep the money to continue purchasing materials for creating the spirit gathering pattern. It could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It was the best choice at the moment. "All right, please wait a moment," the receptionist said enthusiastically. By the time he returned to the Nanyang Martial House from the treasure pavilion, the sky had already turned slightly dark. Carrying 2 heavy bags of materials, Lin Tian went straight back to his residence and carefully placed the purchased materials in the top pavilion. 1,000 spirit coins, and more than 800 were gone in an instant. The cultivation of an array controller is really burning money. Lin Tian felt a little helpless. However, when he thought of the earning ability of an array controller, the helplessness on his face instantly disappeared and was replaced with excitement. Huff! After taking a deep breath, Lin Tian began to organize the materials he had bought. Lin Tian planned for a while. He planned to cultivate the array controller technique to the small success stage within 15 days. Then, he would rely on the array controller technique to create the martial fusion pattern scroll and auction it off. He would then use the spirit coins he earned to purchase materials to inscribe the spirit gathering pattern scroll for cultivation. While cultivating, he would also continue to create the array pattern scroll and use it to exchange for elixirs, immortal herbs, artifacts, and so on. In this way, Lin Tian had full confidence that he could step into the 8th level of the refinement realm in 3 months' time. Even reaching the 9th level of the refinement realm was not impossible. Soon, Lin Tian sorted out the purchased materials and put them away again. Begin, Lin Tian said to himself. He could not wait to start practicing. After fusing the array pattern in his mind, he already knew how to cultivate as an array controller. The first step was to take out the parchment paper and begin to create the initial scrolls. This step was relatively simple, and most people could create it. Therefore, Lin Tian quickly completed the first step and created 9 initial scrolls. Looking at the completed initial scrolls, Lin Tian revealed a smile. Although the first step was simple, no matter what, these things were made by him personally. It was as if they were his own children. Naturally, he would be excited. This was just like cooking. No matter how bland the dish was, as long as it was made by him, he would eat it with relish. After calming down a little, Lin Tian began the second step. The second step was to create the yin ink. The so-called yin ink referred to the special ink used to inscribe array patterns. Array manipulators would mix some precious materials together with the blood and bone marrow of demonic beasts, and then use their true yuan to adjust and grind it, finally obtaining this kind of yin ink. With the initial scrolls and the yin ink, array controllers could imprint the array pattern onto the initial scrolls and create the final product. Lin Tian operated the 4 extreme scriptures. After mobilizing the true yuan in his body, his aura suddenly changed. He began to operate another technique, the One Sky Soul technique. This technique was obtained when he was fusing the array pattern. It was specifically used for the cultivation of the soul. It was also a technique that array controllers had to use to control arrays. Gently raising his hand, Lin Tian took out a portion of the leaf flower root scripture and spirit soaring sulfur. Using his soul power as a guide, he wrapped the 2 materials. Then, he poured his true yuan into them and crushed the 2 materials. He began to absorb the juice produced after they were crushed. After that, he merged the juice with the bone marrow of the 2nd-level demonic beast, Black Demonic Wolf. His soul power became more turbulent as he began to create the yin ink. Wong! A faint brilliance flickered. In front of Lin Tian's chest, a ball of liquid was mixing and changing shape from time to time. Gradually, Lin Tian's forehead began to sweat. His face also became a little pale. Creating the yin ink was far more difficult than creating the initial scroll. This step was extremely difficult. Chapter 25. The process of making the ink not only consumed soul power and Jin Yuan, but it also consumed a shocking amount of energy. Lin Tian stared at the ball of liquid in front of his chest with all his concentration. He controlled his true yuan and soul force to slowly adjust the liquid in front of his chest. Rumble! The liquid was about the size of a fist. As Lin Tian poured his Jin Yuan and soul power into it, the liquid gradually shrank and some black sticky substance fell out. This sticky substance was the impurities that would be produced when making the ink. It was equivalent to the waste product of refining several materials. Lin Tianyi carefully poured his Jun Yuan into the liquid while operating the Heavenly One Soul Secret Art. He carefully maintained the liquid. During this process, He was using an appropriate ratio of Zhen Yuan and soul power to fuse the liquid in front of his chest. This was a very precise process. Even a small mistake could lead to failure. Gradually, the sweat on Lin Tian's forehead became denser. The consumption of his Zhen Yuan and soul power was very serious. It was also at this time that the ratio of Zhen Yuan and soul power that he poured into the liquid became a little chaotic. Not good, Lin Tian thought to himself. Maintaining the liquid in front of his chest, Lin Tian quickly restored the ratio of Zhen Yuan and soul power. Unfortunately, after making a mistake, it was too difficult to restore it. As a result, he made several mistakes in succession. Chi! With a light sound, the liquid in front of his chest shattered and spilled all over the floor. Lin Tianxin's heart was bleeding as he looked at the liquid that splashed on the floor. That was 80 spirit coins. It was enough for an ordinary family to live a stable life for 7 years. But now, 80 spirit coins were gone in an instant in his hands. This made him sigh again. The cultivation of an array controller was really burning money. Who could afford it? Taking a deep breath, Lin Tian closed his eyes and operated the 4 extreme scripture and the heavenly one soul secret art at the same time to restore his Zhen Yuan and soul power. At the same time, he recalled the process of making the ink and concluded the reasons for the mistakes. Progress and failure. This was a principle that Lin Tian had learned in his previous life. Therefore, he was not discouraged. The sky had completely darkened, and the curtain of night had enveloped the earth. Lin Tian didn't rest. Relying on the candlesticks he bought, he continued to practice making ink in the pavilion. After summarizing his first failure, Lin Tian's second attempt at making yin mo went a little smoother. Unfortunately, it was only a little smoother than the first attempt. This time he still failed. 160 spirit coins. Lin Tian smiled bitterly. After the second failure, Lin Tian did not continue to use the materials to make the mixture. Instead, he used his mind to deduce the process of yin mo's mixture. He repeatedly summarized and corrected the previous 2 failures. Very quickly, an hour had passed. Opening his eyes, Lin Tian's eyes flashed with a bright light. Again, he said in a low voice. The tendons of the 100-leaf grass and the spirit incense sulfur were quickly squeezed into a liquid. Then, he mixed the liquid with the black, demonic wolf bone marrow that he had prepared beforehand. He injected his true yuan and soul power at the same time and fused them in a specific ratio. Gradually, drops of black viscous substance dripped onto the ground. Lin Tian was completely focused. He had never been so focused before. He stared at the fist-sized liquid in front of his chest. After summarizing his 2 failures, this time, he was exceptionally proficient. Everything proceeded smoothly. After a quarter of an hour, the fist-sized lump of liquid in front of his chest had shrunk to half its original size. It was also at this time that a faint halo of light appeared. It's done. Lin Tian was pleasantly surprised. He used his true yuan to control yin mo in front of his chest and carefully placed it in the glassware that he had prepared beforehand. Looking at the liquid in the glassware, there was a faint tricolored light flickering with a hint of magical charm. This is yin mo. It's really extraordinary. Lin Tian was slightly excited. The third attempt was finally a success. Putting away his excitement, Lin Tian carefully put away the glassware in which yin mo was placed. Then, he began a new round of yin mo's mixture. He had purchased a total of 10 sets of materials. Now he had used up 3 sets. There were still 7 sets waiting for him to refine. Time passed by. Soon, the stars were hidden, and the morning sun shone on the earth. In the top pavilion, Lin Tian wiped the sweat off his forehead. There was a satisfied look on his face. There were 6 glassware in front of him. Each of them contained the same tricolored liquid. They were all yin mo. In one night, he had successfully mixed 6 sets of yin mo few. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Lin Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He carefully put away the 6 glassware. After a whole night of yin mo's mixture, Lin Tian was still somewhat sleepy. After putting away the initial scroll and yin mo, he walked down from the top pavilion and prepared to rest for a while. Time was precious to him now. He hoped to produce the martial fusion pattern as soon as possible. However, he also knew the principle of more haste, less speed. If he forced himself to practice as a matrix manipulator with tiredness, the failure rate would be extremely high, and a lot of materials would be wasted. After facing the morning sun and breathing for a while, Lin Tian walked into the house and took a nap. He slept for 6 hours. After 6 hours, Lin Tian woke up. He found some food on the wooden table beside his bed. The food was very simple, but there was a faint fragrance. Looking at the food, Lin Tian's eyes became gentle. He was too familiar with the food. With a glance, he knew that it was made by Lin Shi. Thinking about it, when Lin Shi woke him up after cooking, she found that he was sleeping. She felt that he was very tired, so she didn't disturb him. She only put the food beside his bed. Lin Tian chuckled. She was really a considerate little girl. After getting out of bed, Lin Tian quickly digested the food Lin Shi prepared for him. After cleaning up the bowls and chopsticks, he once again went to the top pavilion. He had already completed the first 2 steps of the Matrix Manipulator practice, making the initial scroll in Yin Mo. Now, there was only the last step left. The last step was to use his true essence and soul force to thoroughly understand the runes on the initial scroll with Yin Mo. Then he would create the finished martial fusion rune. Then he would integrate the power of the martial skill into it. The strength of the martial skill determined the final value of the martial fusion rune scroll. Simply put, if the power of a low-grade body transformation martial skill was integrated into the martial fusion rune, the final scroll would be a low-grade body transformation martial fusion rune scroll. If the power of a mid-grade body transformation martial skill was integrated, the final scroll would be a mid-grade body transformation martial fusion rune scroll, and so on. Of course, the degree of martial skill power that could be fused into the scroll was also related to the quality of the martial fusion marking that the array controller inscribed. If the quality of the martial fusion marking inscribed was ordinary, the martial skill power that could be fused into the scroll would not be too strong. The value of the finished martial fusion marking martial skill scroll that was created at the end would naturally not be high. Sitting cross-legged in the top pavilion, Lin Tian closed his eyes and searched for the martial fusion rune in his mind. Then he began to seriously deduce it. He used his mind to comprehend this kind of formation pattern. In his mind, the tiny martial fusion pattern was instantly magnified countless times. Every basic pattern, every arc, every corner, everything became clear. The martial fusion rune was composed of 6 patterns that were connected to each other to form a whole. It was beautiful, but it also had a special charm. Lin Tian's soul force was extremely strong. In addition, the martial fusion rune was the simplest of the basic runes. So, it only took him a day to completely comprehend the rune. Now it's time for the final carving. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Comprehending the rune didn't mean that he could easily carve it. It wasn't the same thing. Compared to making the initial scroll and refining the Yin Mo, the third step of carving the rune was undoubtedly more difficult. It was dozens of times more difficult than refining the Yin Mo. After resting for a while, Lin Tian didn't directly use the refined Yin Mo and the initial scroll to carve. Instead, he took out simple paper and ink and began to practice drawing the martial fusion rune. The initial scroll was fine, but the Yin Mo was frighteningly expensive. It was also very difficult to make. Lin Tian didn't dare to directly use the Yin Mo to carve the rune. Lin Tian thought that he would first rely on the simple paper and ink to practice carving the martial fusion rune. When he was able to draw the martial fusion rune with ease, he would then proceed to the true final step and use the Yin Mo to carve the rune on the initial scroll. This way, he could at least minimize the failure rate. As soon as he thought of it, Lin Tian mobilized his true essence and soul force and began carving. The carving of the rune didn't use a pen. Instead, it used true essence and soul force as a guide. It relied on the Yin Mo to draw the rune on the initial scroll and turn it into a finished product. Lin Tian bought a thick stack of white paper and ordinary ink. He used his true essence to draw out a blob of ink and poured his soul force into it. He seriously practiced. Time passed day by day. Soon, 5 days had passed. During these 5 days, apart from the necessary rest and meals, Lin Tian had been practicing carving the martial fusion rune with ordinary paper and ink. He had used up nearly 1,000 pieces of white paper. Lin Tianyi didn't feel any heartache regarding this. These pieces of white paper only added up to 2 spirit coins. Compared to the cost of purchasing other materials, this was really nothing. On this day, Lin Tian prepared to truly begin the final step. 1. A faint brilliance lingered around his body. Sitting cross-legged in the pavilion, Lin Tian simultaneously circulated the 4 extreme scripture and the heavenly one soul secret art. He only stopped when his true essence and soul force reached the optimal level. Begin! Taking a deep breath, Lin Tian's eyes flashed with a deep light. Opening the initial scroll, Lin Tian's right hand slightly moved. His true essence and soul force circulated at the same time. Suddenly, the yin mo in the container beside him all flew out and gathered in his right hand. Looking at the yin mo in his hand, Lin Tian seriously recalled the feeling of carving the martial fusion rune with ordinary paper and ink. His right hand slowly lowered. At this moment, various hand seals and formation patterns appeared in his mind. Accompanied by a swishing sound, a Dao pattern as sharp as an eagle's claw appeared on the initial scroll. As Lin Tian's arm moved, it slowly extended. After thousands of ordinary practice, Lin Tian was already very familiar with the carving of the martial fusion rune. Soon, the first basic pattern of the martial fusion rune was completed. At this time, Lin Tian didn't stop what he was doing. He gently flicked his 5 fingers, and the pattern on the initial scroll suddenly changed its angle. A new pattern connected to the first pattern at the same time as it began to appear in another arc and slowly extended. Very good. Lin Tian couldn't help but feel satisfied with his performance. After 5 days of repeated practice, there was finally an effect. Without being careless, Lin Tian concentrated and continued carving the martial fusion rune. After an hour, he had already completed 3/5 of the martial fusion rune. Chapter 26. The inscription of the array pattern required one to be completed in one go, without any pause in between. Once there was a pause, it would be a failure. At this moment, Lin Tian had only inscribed 3/5 of the martial fusion pattern, but his Jin Yuan was about to be exhausted. This was something he did not expect, and a bad feeling arose spontaneously. Clenching his teeth, Lin Tian's mind became more focused, and his right hand moved faster. Wong! The Jin Yuan fluctuated violently, and the soul power became even more turbulent. The yin ink in Lin Tian's right hand quickly fell onto the initial scroll, and a delicate and mysterious pattern was drawn. Gradually, a dense layer of sweat appeared on Lin Tian's forehead, and his face slowly became pale. Chi! A light sound was heard, and Lin Tian's right hand trembled slightly, and he stopped. Somewhat helpless, Lin Tian sighed. Failed. He smiled bitterly to himself. However, it was only for a moment, and Lin Tian's face became firm again. From the beginning, he knew that the cultivation of an array manipulator was not simple. The third step was far more difficult than the second step, and failure was expected. Inscribing with ordinary ink and yin ink, there is a small difference. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Not continuing to inscribe, Lin Tian temporarily stopped the movement of his hand and quietly pondered. The failure this time was not because he was unfamiliar with the array pattern, but because his Jin Yuan was insufficient. After his Jin Yuan was insufficient, the inscription of the array pattern was interrupted, which directly led to the failure. In other words, the amount of Jin Yuan is the only problem now. Lin Tian thought to himself. The amount of Jin Yuan could not be changed overnight. After thinking for a moment, Lin Tian thought of a method, and that was to madly circulate the 4 extreme meridians when the stars were hanging in the sky, and when his Jin Yuan temporarily exceeded the peak. Then he would begin to inscribe the array pattern. It was midnight, and Lin Tian immediately started to madly circulate the 4 extreme meridians. In an instant, resplendent starlight poured down from the sky and shone on Lin Tian's body, quickly entering his body. After this, as time passed, the sound of wind and thunder began to resound within Lin Tian's body. His true essence was slowly restored, as if a 10,000 thunder dragon was roaring within him. In the blink of an hour had passed. At this moment, the amount of true essence in Lin Tian's body reached the densest it had ever been since he started cultivating. It was also at this moment that he suddenly opened his eyes. Now, the Jin Yuan in Lin Tian's body surged. With a wave of his hand, the Yin Mo in the container next to him suddenly gathered and converged in his right hand. His eyes flickered, and his 5 fingers moved together. Instantly, ink flew everywhere, and a sharp pattern appeared on the paper, extending along with the movement of his hand. Soon, the first pattern was completed. Without feeling happy, Lin Tian's essence, energy, and spirit were still highly concentrated. He flicked his 5 fingers, and the second pattern appeared. After a perfect arc, it began to spiral in a wavy curve. Lin Tian had long mastered the art of inscribing array patterns. The only reason he had failed just now was because he didn't have enough true essence. Wong! With a light sound, the third pattern was completed. At this moment, Lin Tian didn't feel any lack of true essence. This meant that the method he thought of was indeed feasible. Continue, Lin Tian thought to himself. Light flashed in his eyes. In his mind, the paths of the patterns appeared perfectly. Then, his right hand seemed to have its own consciousness. It danced quickly, and every drop of yin ink was precisely engraved where it should be engraved. Half an hour later, the fourth pattern was completed. At this time, Lin Tian once again felt a lack of true essence. He roughly estimated that 5/7 of the true essence in his body had been consumed. It works! Lin Tian gritted his teeth. His right hand danced even faster. Lin Tian stared at the initiation scroll in front of him, his true essence and soul power jumping together. The fifth pattern was completed. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. His true essence was almost completely depleted. When there was only one pattern left, Lin Tian gritted his teeth and forcibly operated the 4 extremes meridians while inscribing the pattern, absorbing the power of the stars to replenish his true essence. This was an extremely risky move. Multitasking could easily lead to errors in the inscribing of array patterns. However, Lin Tian persevered. There were no errors. Just a little bit more, almost. Wong. Following the emergence of a halo, the space in the pavilion became slightly brighter. However, this was only for a short moment. After a breath, the halo quickly dimmed. The scroll lay quietly on the top floor of the pavilion. As far as the eye could see, at the center of the scroll, there was an inch-long array pattern engraved on the scroll. This array pattern was composed of 6 basic lines, and each line was like a dragon flying and a phoenix dancing. It gave people a kind of transcendent charm, and there was a faint, true inner force interweaving within it. It's done! Lin Tian's face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. This was the martial fusion pattern. The finished martial fusion pattern. Lin Tian took a deep breath and secretly suppressed the excitement in his heart. This was because he still had one last small step to complete. Of course, this last small step was very simple. It was about the same level of difficulty as creating the initiation scroll. He extended his right hand and pressed it on the air above the martial fusion pattern. Suddenly, a sharp sword intent spread out from his right hand. Mid-level body, refinement martial art, shocking wind sword art. Lin Tian had already cultivated the first move, Sword of Annihilation, to great accomplishment. At this moment, he was operating the first move, and the condensed sword aura slowly hit the scroll below. It was strange. Shocking wind sword art was very terrifying, but at this moment, when the sword aura fell on the scroll, it was directly absorbed by the martial fusion pattern in the center. How magical! Lin Tian thought to himself. After integrating the knowledge of array patterns in his mind, he already knew that there would be such a situation. However, knowing was one thing. When he really saw this scene, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. This also made him sigh even more at the mystery and power of array controllers. The array patterns they engraved actually possessed such divine power. He pressed his right hand on top of the scroll, and more sword aura was emitted. One. Suddenly, in the center of his right hand, a faint light was emitted. Lin Tian looked down and was immediately shocked. He saw that the sword pattern in the center of his right hand was actually emitting a little light. This is... Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. This sword pattern was something that was born after the mysterious iron sword merged into his body. Other than being a little surprised when he first saw it, he didn't pay too much attention to it. He didn't expect that at this moment, this thing would emit a faint light on its own. One. The sword pattern flashed slightly, and the brilliance spread out. Suddenly, a low sword hum sounded and clanged. Lin Tian was shocked to find that the sword aura of the first move of the shocking wind sword art had more than doubled in an instant. Looking at this scene, Lin Tian was deeply moved. Through the sword pattern in the center of his right hand, the power of the sword aura he swept out had increased by so much. This really shocked him. He thought quickly and suddenly had a conjecture. When he didn't rely on anything to perform the shocking wind sword art, could it be that the sword pattern in the center of his right hand turned into an invisible divine sword and made the sword aura he displayed stronger? Seriously speaking, when I practiced the shocking wind sword art, I used a tree branch. When I first performed the sword of destruction against an enemy, I also used a dead branch. Maybe both of them were used as weapons. That's why the sword pattern didn't have any reaction at that time. Now that I don't have anything in my hand, the sword pattern moved. While muttering to himself, Lin Tian increasingly felt that his conjecture was very likely to be true. At this moment, Lin Tian took a small wooden stick and experimented. The result was as he had guessed. When he performed the shocking wind sword art with his bare hands, the power of the shocking wind sword art was much stronger than when he held a wooden stick. Lin Tian couldn't help but feel a little excited. Without a sword in his hand, it was actually stronger than with a sword in his hand. This was really an unexpected surprise. Taking a deep breath, Lin Tian forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart and once again cast his gaze onto the martial fusion marking scroll. Only with this glance did he discover that the martial fusion marking in the center of the scroll had already reached saturation, and it had actually been truly refined without him noticing. Just like that, a martial fusion pattern scroll of a middle-level body, refining martial technique, was born in his hand. Lin Tian couldn't help but grin. This was really a double blessing. Rest for a while, then continue to refine. Lin Tian thought to himself. Time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 5 days had passed. Buzz! In the pavilion, a faint silver light flickered. Lin Tian performed the first move of the shocking wind sword art. His right hand pressed down, and suddenly, a dozen sword auras appeared and slowly sank into the newly made martial fusion pattern under his right hand. After a while, with a clang, the sword auras hissed, and Lin Tian withdrew his right hand. At this point, all the materials had been exhausted. Lin Tian had made a total of 3 middle-level body, refining martial technique, martial fusion pattern scrolls. Looking at these 3 completed martial fusion pattern scrolls, Lin Tian couldn't help but feel a strong sense of accomplishment. From beginning to end, it was a total of 11 days. Only 11 days, and he had reached this step from a layman in the field of array manipulation. This was enough to make him proud. Of course, it was only pride. Lin Tian didn't feel proud because of this. Pride made people fall behind. He was very clear about this principle. Rest for half a day, then go to the treasure pavilion. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. It was currently early in the morning. After carefully putting away the 3 middle-level body, refining martial technique, martial fusion pattern scrolls, Lin Tian walked down from the pavilion and directly lay on his bed. In these 11 days, he was really exhausted. He slept all the way until noon. Under the scorching sun, Lin Tian woke up. After eating a simple meal, he changed into the black cloak that he had prepared early in the morning and quietly walked out of the martial house. Without much delay, Lin Tian quickly arrived at the treasure pavilion and walked straight to a house on the side of the auction house. There were 3 large words engraved on the door of the house. Treasure Inspecting Hall. Walking into the house, Lin Tian first saw a middle-aged man. At this time, the middle-aged man naturally also saw Lin Tian. Like the reception lady from 10 days ago, after seeing Lin Tian's strange attire, the middle-aged man was also somewhat moved. However, compared to the reception lady, the middle-aged man's professionalism was obviously more outstanding. His eyes only flickered slightly. "Excuse me, are you here for treasure inspection?" Standing up, the middle-aged man's face revealed a professional smile. Lin Tian nodded and casually took out 3 scrolls and placed them on the table in front of him. Chapter 27. The application software has been developed. Please visit the bottom to download and install the Android and Apple applications. As the person in charge of the Treasure Exchange Pavilion's inspection hall, the middle-aged man had appraised countless rare treasures. Naturally, he had seen the works of array manipulators several times. With a single glance, he recognized that the scroll provided by Lin Tian was a martial fusion rune scroll specially made by array manipulators. It was very precious. Lin Tianwei nodded and said, "Yes." The middle-aged man was shocked again. Hearing this voice, it was actually a young man under the black robe. "Excuse me, what level is this martial fusion rune scroll?" The middle-aged man asked carefully. Although he was surprised that the person under the black robe was somewhat young, the middle-aged man's attitude still became very respectful. "Mid-level body, refinement martial technique. Lin Tiandao. Are you planning to auction 3 copies together?" A voice came from under the cloak. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. It wasn't the first time he had seen a martial fusion rune scroll for a mid-level body refinement martial technique. However, it was his first time seeing 3 copies at once. Slightly bowing, the middle-aged man said, "Can I trouble you to wait here for a moment? Because your item is too precious and you want 3 copies at once, I need to ask the deacon." "No problem," Lin Tiandao said. The middle-aged man nodded repeatedly. After brewing a pot of good tea for Lin Tian, he hurriedly walked out. Lin Tian sat quietly on the chair. Only now did he slightly glance around the small room. He found that the room was very grand. Moreover, there were many other things in the room that seemed to be waiting to be appraised. Creak! Soon, the door of the inspection hall was pushed open. The middle-aged man came back with a purple-robed old man. This old man's hair and beard were white, but his complexion was very ruddy. The most special thing about this old man was that there was a strange pattern on his chest. Below the pattern, there were 2 golden bars. It looked somewhat special. "Hello, this is our Treasure Exchange Pavilion's chief deacon, Master Pushi." Master Pushi is not only a divine pulse expert, but also a powerful array manipulator. The middle-aged man introduced respectfully. Lin Tianwei's expression changed slightly under the black robes. Not only was this person a divine vein expert, but he was also a formation master. He was truly a terrifying person. Thinking about it from another perspective, for there to be such a person in the Yi Bao Pavilion, his background was indeed not simple. If that was the case, then the rumor of a mysterious clan supporting the Yi Bao Pavilion might be true. Pu Shi sized up Lin Tian, who was wearing a black robe, with a strange expression. He had already heard from the middle-aged man that the person under the black robe was a youth. A youth actually took out 3 middle-grade body refinement level martial skills to auction. This really made him somewhat astonished. One must know that an average array controller was above 30 years old. Walking to the table in front, Pu Shi picked up a scroll. After a few breaths, Pu Shi nodded his head slightly. This was indeed a martial fusion rune scroll for a middle-rank body refinement martial skill. "Can I open it?" Pu Shi asked. "Sure." Lin Tian nodded. Pu Shi opened one of the scrolls and immediately saw a dragon flying and phoenix dancing formation pattern. His eyes immediately moved. Relying on his many years of experience as an array controller, this formation pattern was definitely not something an ordinary array controller could draw. The lines of runes seemed to be drawn by a master who had drawn hundreds and thousands of martial fusion runes. Taking a deep breath, Pushi spread out his right hand and pressed it on the formation pattern. Following a faint flicker of light, Pushi slightly trembled after a while. When he looked at Lin Tian again, Pushi's face revealed an unconcealable shock. Truly a young hero. This is the strongest middle-grade body refinement martial fusion rune I have ever seen in my life. Little brother, are you really going to auction all of them? Pushi asked seriously. These 3 martial fusion rune scrolls were definitely not simple. The value was extremely high. Lin Tian nodded. Of course. Can you arrange the fastest time for me? I have something important to do. Of course, no problem. There just happens to be an auction in progress. A glint flashed through Pushi's eyes. If these 3 martial fusion runes were successfully auctioned, the Bao Pavilion would be able to get a large sum of money just by taking a commission. He looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Take this little brother to the VIP room. I will personally deliver the scrolls to the auction house." "Yes, Lord Pushi." The middle-aged man nodded. Immediately after, he moved to the side and extended a hand. The expression on his face became even more respectful. "Little brother, this way, please." Lin Tian nodded and walked out. In the small room of the inspection hall, Pushi looked at Lin Tian's back as he walked away. A glint flashed in his old eyes. Listening to the voice, the person under the black robe is at most 16 years old. A 16-year-old array controller, and his level is actually so high. He is even slightly stronger than me. When did such a peerless monster appear in Fengjian City? Shaking his head, Pushi carefully put away the 3 martial fusion rune scrolls and quickly walked towards the auction house. Under the middle-aged man's lead, Lin Tian walked into a small wooden pavilion in the auction house. The interior of the wooden pavilion was rather luxurious, but it was also slightly warm. It gave people a very comfortable feeling. This small wooden pavilion was the VIP area of the auction house. It was specially opened for some important people. Within each small wooden pavilion, only one person could use it. The wooden pavilion was very quiet. As far as the eye could see, one could clearly see the entire auction house. The auction house was very large. It was enough to accommodate several hundred people at the same time. At this moment, on the jade platform at the very front of the auction house, a red-clothed woman with an enchanting figure was using a sweet voice to introduce an item to the people in the auction house. The woman was about 18 years old. Her body was covered in a red dress. Under her slender jade neck, her soft breasts were like white jade. They were half covered. Her waist was slim, and her long and well-proportioned legs were exposed in the air. They emitted a fatal primitive temptation. As the woman's voice sounded again and again, Lin Tian discovered that the originally not very valuable item was being sold at an unimaginably high price. It seems that beauty has a miraculous effect no matter where it is. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Looking at the enchanting woman at the very front of the auction house, Lin Tian couldn't help but admit that she was indeed a femme fatale. Her charm and seduction were vividly displayed. He also finally understood why countless people were willing to cooperate with the E-Treasure Pavilion under the premise of taking a 30% commission. Thinking about it, with such a beauty presiding over the auction, the price of the treasures would definitely be raised by those important people again and again. In the end, although 30% commission was somewhat exaggerated, in reality, the price of the treasures would be raised by a lot. The seller would definitely not suffer a loss. Interesting. Lin Tian sat in the wooden pavilion and watched quietly. Very quickly, an hour passed. Several more treasures were auctioned off. Of course, the prices were not bad. It was also at this moment that the woman in red who stood at the front of the auction hall revealed a charming and mysterious smile. She said, "Everyone, just a moment ago, the Hall of Treasures received 3 rare treasures. I believe everyone will be interested in them." The woman clapped her hands lightly. Suddenly, a receptionist walked out from behind the curtain at the side of the jade platform. This receptionist was holding a wooden tray with 3 scrolls on it. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian was shocked. This was his item. "Miss Xing Yao, what is this?" Many people were puzzled. The red-clothed woman's name was Xing Yao. She took out a scroll from the wooden tray and smiled charmingly. She said, "This is a middle-grade body, refining level martial fusion rune scroll. It came from the hands of a mysterious and powerful array manipulator. It was personally appraised by the auction house's chief steward, Lord Pushi, and sent here. Everyone, I believe Xing Yao doesn't need to say anything more." Wah! As soon as Xing Yao's words fell, the entire auction house was in an uproar. What? A middle-grade body, refining level martial fusion rune scroll. Lord Pushi personally appraised it? Personally sent it here? This, in an instant, the entire auction house was in an uproar. Those who frequently went to the auction house had high statuses. Naturally, they knew the value of the martial fusion rune scroll. Most importantly, these people knew how powerful Pushi was. He was a divine vein realm expert and also an array manipulator. Even the masters of a few large clans in Fengjiang City were afraid of him. A martial fusion rune scroll that could be personally appraised by Pushi and sent over was obviously extraordinary. It was a rare treasure among rare treasures. After Lord Pushi's appraisal, these 3 middle-grade body, refinement martial fusion rune scrolls are all very powerful. Once they're used, even in the hands of an ordinary person, the martial skill power they display can easily kill a strong person at the 5th layer of body refinement. It can even heavily injure a normal person at the 6th layer of body refinement. Xing Yao said. Such words immediately caused another uproar. Looking at the crowd, Xing Yao charmingly smiled and said, "Everyone here is rich, but there are very few people who practice martial arts. Of course, it's not that everyone can't practice martial arts. It's just that everyone is busy and doesn't have time to practice martial arts. Everyone often transports valuable goods. The least is a few 100,000 spirit coins, and the most is a few million spirit coins. Think about it. What would happen if you encountered bandits on the way? It wouldn't be good. At this time, if you had a martial fusion rune scroll in your hands, you would be able to calmly deal with ordinary bandits. Of course, Xing Yao believes that everyone has the help of luck. Something like encountering bandits would definitely not happen. However, with this martial fusion rune scroll, even if an ordinary person were to face a powerful 6th guy of body refining realm expert, they wouldn't have the slightest bit of fear. Moreover, as long as this scroll isn't used, it could be passed down. When Xing Yao's words fell, the crowd was silent at first. Then they became even more excited. Miss Xing Yao's words are reasonable. These 3 martial fusion rune scrolls, I want them. They're mine. Loud shouts sounded one after another. Within the small wooden pavilion, Lin Tian was moved. He looked at the red-clothed girl on the jade platform with some astonishment. It seemed that this girl wasn't just a simple flower vase. Her words just now were extremely ingenious. Not only did she not offend those wealthy merchants who didn't have martial arts, she also perfectly explained the magical effects of the martial fusion rune scroll. It was truly wonderful. This girl isn't simple, Lin Tian thought to himself. At the front of the auction house, Xing Yao smiled at the crowd and said, "Then, let the auction begin." Because these 3 martial fusion rune scrolls came from the same array manipulator, their value is equal. Therefore, in order to avoid unnecessary disputes, we've decided to auction the 3 together. The starting price is 10,000 spirit coins. P.S. Thank you to Lemon Chi for your support of 10,000 horizontal coins. Thank you to Jie Hanshin for your support of 2,000 horizontal coins. Thank you both. Chapter 28. As soon as Xing Yao's words fell, the whole auction house was in an uproar. 11,000, 12,000, 14,000. The voices of bidding kept ringing out. In the small wooden pavilion, Lin Tian couldn't help but feel a little excited when he heard the crazy voices in the auction house. Judging from the current situation, excluding the commission, he could already earn 9,800 spirit coins, which was a net profit of more than 8,000 spirit coins. Array controllers really make money like drinking water. Lin Tian thought to himself. In the auction house, the price was still increasing and had already reached 17,000 spirit coins. 20,000. At this moment, a faint voice sounded from the VIP room next to Lin Tian's. As the voice fell, the whole auction house suddenly quieted down. Many people looked in the direction of the VIP area and couldn't help but feel a little depressed. The price of 20,000 spirit coins was really a bit exaggerated. 21,000. Suddenly, another voice rang out from another VIP room. 22,000. The voice sounded again from the VIP room next to Lin Tian's. Hey, Xiao Nan, hasn't your daughter Xiao Yin already entered the Nanyang martial house? When the time comes, let your daughter teach you a few moves. Why waste spirit coins on this martial fusion pattern scroll? The bidder was obviously very familiar with the person in the VIP room next to Lin Tian. After a slight sneer, he said, 23,000. In the wooden pavilion, Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. Xiao Nan, Xiao Yin's father? A cold light flashed through his eyes. After a while, Lin Tian couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth into an evil smile. In the VIP room next to him, Xiao Nan snorted coldly. When did I, Xiao Nan, need you, Qin Luo, to teach me how to do things? Can't I buy it and take it back as an inheritance item? A cold voice sounded. Xiao Nan increased the price. 24,000. Everyone present was shocked. Xiao Nan and Qin Luo were the most famous businessmen in Fengjian City. They were the current masters of the Xiao family and the Qin family, respectively. Many people were slightly surprised. They didn't expect these two to be at odds with each other. 25,000. Qin Luo said. Soon, under everyone's widened eyes, Xiao Nan and Qin Luo fought wildly and raised the price of the 3 martial fusion pattern scrolls from 10,000 spirit coins to 32,000. 35,000. Xiao Nan said. The entire auction house was silent. It was as if the entire world had quietened down. After a moment of silence, a voice rang out. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you have this. On the jade platform at the front of the auction house, Xing Yao smiled at the VIP room where Qin Luo was. Patriarch Xiao Nan has bid 35,000 spirit coins. Is there anyone who wants to increase the price? Xing Yao smiled as she looked at the entire auction hall. Everyone in the square silently shook their heads. 35,000. This price was really too high. As expected of the Xiao clan, they are indeed rich. Exactly. We can't compete. 35,000. Who dares to raise the price? Many people whispered. Xing Yao swept her gaze over the entire crowd. From beginning to end, she had a charming smile on her face. Since no one is increasing the price, then Xing Yao will announce that these 3 martial fusion rune scrolls are 40,000. At this moment, a slightly low voice sounded. The entire auction house fell into a deathly silence. Then, the crowd erupted into an uproar. 40,000? My God, which God is this? This, many people raised their heads and looked at a VIP room in the VIP area. Xing Yao also raised her head and looked. However, when she found the VIP room where the voice came from, her charming face froze. Wasn't the person in the VIP room the owner of these 3 scrolls? Why did he call out the price himself? In the wooden pavilion, the corners of Lin Tian's mouth rose slightly. He was the one who called out the price of 40,000. He lowered his voice and spoke again with a teasing voice. The dignified patriarch of the Xiao clan, with hundreds of millions of strings of cash at his waist, is only willing to pay 35,000 spirit coins in front of Miss Xing Yao. How stingy he! Xing Yao's enchanting face revealed a stunned expression. However, immediately after, a strange light flashed through her eyes, and she returned to her previous charming state. The gentleman in VIP room number 3 has bid 40,000 spirit coins. Patriarch Xiao Nan, would you like to increase the price? Xing Yao smiled. Her voice could be said to be somewhat seductive, making many people's bodies soften. 41,000. Xiao Nan said. 41,000? Only increasing it by 11,000? How stingy. Lin Tian lowered his voice again and said with a faint smile. 46,000 spirit coins. 47,000. 52,000. In the auction house, everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at VIP room number 3. Heavens, which deity is this? 40,000, 46,000, 52,000. Each increase is 55,000. This is crazy. The patriarch of the Shao clan is actually being overshadowed. This is the true meaning of having hundreds of millions of strings of cash at his waist. The auction house was abuzz with discussion. Not to mention the ordinary people. Even Xing Yao, who had been in the auction house for a long time, had a strange expression. She had presided over hundreds of auctions, but this was the first time she saw someone increase the price by 55,000. However, she seemed to know the purpose of the person in VIP room number 3, so she didn't say anything. Instead, she smiled even more charmingly. Patriarch Xiaonan, VIP room number 3 has bid 52,000. Would you like to increase the price? Xing Yao said with a smile. Xiaonan was in VIP room number 2. After hearing the voices in the auction house, he saw Xing Yao looking at VIP room number 2. Suddenly, the sound of a palm hitting the table was heard. 60,000. A voice mixed with anger and coldness came out of Xiaonan's mouth. Hiss! In the auction house, the sound of people sucking in cold air was heard. In an instant, the auction house quieted down again. Many people subconsciously looked at VIP room number 3. Clap, clap, clap. Rhythmic applause came out of VIP room number 3. Lin Tian lowered his voice and said with a faint smile, "You are worthy of being the number 1 merchant family in Fengjian City. You're really generous." I didn't bring enough spirit coins. Today I will let Patriarch Xiaonan have this scroll. As soon as his words fell, the auction house went into an uproar. 60,000. Someone muttered to himself. On the jade platform, Xing Yao's face was like a spring breeze. She said with a smile, "Patriarch Xiaonan has bid 60,000 spirit coins. Would anyone like to increase the price?" The auction house was silent. 60,000 spirit coins. Who would want to increase the price? With a dong sound, the golden bell on the jade platform rang. Xing Yao looked in the direction of the second VIP room and said, "Congratulations to Patriarch Xiaonan for obtaining 3 mid-grade body, refining martial fusion rune scrolls for 60,000 spirit coins. I also thank Patriarch Xiaonan for supporting our Bao Pavilion's auction house. In a moment, Xing Yao will personally order someone to deliver the items to you." As soon as she finished speaking, in VIP room number 1, Qin Luo suddenly laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha, Xiaonan, congratulations. You bought 3 middle-level body refining level martial fusion pattern scrolls for 60,000 spirit coins. You're so generous." "Qin Luo, shut up." In VIP room number 2, Xiaonan shouted in a low voice. Buying 3 middle-level body refining martial fusion pattern scrolls for 60,000 spirit coins was a great loss. On the jade platform, Xing Yao always had a charming smile on her face. She faintly glanced at VIP room number 3. In VIP room number 3, the corners of Lin Tian's mouth raised slightly. He stood up and walked out of the small wooden pavilion. "Xiaonan, Xiao Yun, Xiao family, just you wait. It won't be long before I make you spit out the things you stole from the Lin family." Lin Tianling smiled, putting aside his identity as a transmigrator. Most of the Xiao family's assets now belong to the Lin family and Lin Shi. He would definitely take back these things, take them back with double. Of course, money was only one aspect. In the past 2 years, he would also make the Xiao family pay back the grievances and ridicule that Lin Shi had suffered from the Xiao family. Outside VIP room number 3, the middle-aged man from the inspection hall was waiting with his head down. He was extremely quiet. When he saw Lin Tian come out, he immediately greeted him with a respectful face. "Little brother, your treasures have been auctioned. This way, please." Lin Tian nodded and followed the middle-aged man down. The middle-aged man brought him to an even more luxurious room. Pushi was waiting inside. When he saw the middle-aged man bring Lin Tian in, he immediately stood up and greeted him with a smile. "Little brother, please sit." Pushi smiled. "Thank you." Lin Tian didn't stand on ceremony. He immediately chose a seat and sat down. Pushi nodded to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man immediately understood and carefully left the room. "Little brother, please wait a moment. Your auction money will be sent over soon," Pushi said. Lin Tian nodded and waited quietly. Not long after, on the other side of the room, a woman in red pushed open the door and entered. The woman had a snow-white neck, slender legs, and a figure with a mature charm. Wasn't she Xing Yao, who hosted the auction just now? With a seductive fragrance, Xing Yao smiled charmingly and went straight to Lin Tian's side. "Little brother, are you the owner of the 3 martial fusion pattern scrolls?" The delicate voice resounded in his ears, and the delicate fragrance rushed into his nose. Lin Tian, who was under the black robe, suddenly trembled. "Little brother?" Secretly cursing evildoer, Lin Tian took a step back. What he didn't know was that when the 3 martial fusion pattern scrolls were sent to the back of the auction house by Pushi, Pushi also told Xing Yao some information about him at the first moment. This naturally included his approximate age. Little brother is still shy. Xing Yao covered her mouth and laughed foolishly. Cough, cough. A dry cough sounded. Pushi stood up. "Miss, pay attention to your status." Xing Yao rolled her eyes. She didn't care about Pushi's reminder at all. Instead, she moved closer to Lin Tian, almost sticking her body to Lin Tian. "Speaking of which, little brother, you're not honest. Just now, you actually used Big Sister." Under the black robe, Lin Tian's old face reddened. Speaking of which, Xing Yao didn't wrongly accuse him. Just now, he really did use her a little. There's a reason for it. It's not just to raise the price. "Forgive me," he explained. Xing Yao smiled charmingly. If it was any other day, Xing Yao would definitely be very angry. However, since it's you, little brother, Xing Yao can't get angry no matter what. It's really strange. "Little brother, what do you think is going on? Could it be that we're destined to be together?" Chapter 29. An even more alluring fragrance wafted into his nostrils. To men, this was simply like a fatal poison. Under the black robe, Lin Tianyi was speechless. This seductress was indeed a source of calamity. Taking a step back, he coughed dryly and said, "The auction is over. Can you give me the money now?" Xing Yao smiled sweetly, appearing even more seductive. She moved closer to Lin Tian. "You just used me, and now you're in a hurry to ask for money. Little brother, you're so unkind." Xing Yao pretended to be resentful. At such a close distance, Xing Yao's body was almost completely pressed against Lin Tian's body. Lin Tian could even clearly feel the heart-stirring softness on her chest. "Seductress!" Under the black robe, Lin Tian cursed in his heart. In the room, the dry cough sounded again. Pushi was a little embarrassed. He said to Lin Tiandao, "Little brother, don't be anxious. Your auction money is being prepared and will be sent over soon. Please wait for a moment." Then, the old man looked at Xing Yao and reminded her, "Miss, please mind your words and actions." Xing Yao rolled her eyes and finally unwillingly moved away from Lin Tian's side. "Little brother, you're so interesting." As she moved away, she smiled seductively at Lin Tian and sat down next to Lin Tian. The fragrance wafted into his nose from time to time. Lin Tianyi cursed the seductress in his heart. At the same time, he was a little surprised. Pushi was the chief deacon of the Bao Pavilion. His position was extremely high, but now he called Xing Yao Mississippi. What was the identity of this seductress? It seemed that she was not a simple auctioneer. Just as Lin Tian was thinking about this, Xing Yao's voice sounded again. A pair of watery eyes stared straight at Lin Tian. "Little brother, are you really a formation manipulator? The 3 martial fusion scrolls were all made by little brother?" A 16-year-old formation manipulator was really too young. In the history of Beiyan, there had never been such a young formation manipulator. Most importantly, his level of formation manipulation was extremely high. This really surprised Xing Yao. Yes, Lin Tian's words were concise and comprehensive. He felt as if he was treading on thin ice when interacting with such a femme fatale at such a close distance. Xing Yao's eyes flashed. Although she didn't have any doubts from the beginning, she was still a little surprised to hear Lin Tian admit it himself. After sizing up Lin Tian for a while, Xing Yao revealed a trace of suspicion and asked, "Little brother, where's your array manipulator emblem? Aren't you wearing it?" "Coat of arms." Lin Tianwei was a little confused. Xing Yao and Pu Shi looked at each other, feeling a little strange. Pu Shi pointed at a pattern on his chest and said, "It's this thing." After an array manipulator has been certified by the Array Manipulator Guild, the Array Manipulator Guild will issue a corresponding rank emblem according to their aptitude and strength. There's a branch of the Array Manipulator Guild in Fengjian City. Could it be that little brother hasn't gone to get certified? Under the black robe, Lin Tian's expression changed. There was still an Array Manipulator Guild? This was the first time he had heard of it. "I've just learned how to control arrays, so I haven't gone yet," Lin Tian said. Hearing this, Pu Shi and Xing Yao were both shocked. "Just learned?" The two of them looked at each other, revealing a shocked expression. He had just learned how to control arrays, and he had already reached this level? Where did this monster come from? The corner of Pu Shi's mouth twitched slightly. He said, "When you're free, little brother should go to the Array Manipulator Guild to get certified as soon as possible. With little brother's strength, your rank naturally won't be low. At that time, with the rank emblem issued by the Array Manipulator Guild, your daily activities will be much more convenient. If you have something to auction, the price will also be higher." Under the black robe, Lin Tian was stunned. There was such a good thing after getting certified? He nodded and said, "And thank you. I'll go later." At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and a maid came in and handed a purple card to Xing Yao. Taking the purple card, Xing Yao smiled and handed it to Lin Tian. She smiled sweetly and said, "Little brother, after deducting 30% of the 60,000 spirit coins, you still have 42,000 spirit coins left. I specially ordered someone to make a high-grade spirit storage card for you. I'm treating you well, right?" 40,000 spirit coins, just counting it, was a frightening amount, not to mention that there were even more spirit coins. Therefore, the Northern Flame country had set up institutions similar to banks, which issued and recorded all kinds of spirit coins. With this kind of card, the holder could go to the bank and withdraw the spirit coins he needed at any time. "Thank you." Lin Tiandao, thinking about it. If he had to carry 42,000 spirit coins back to the martial house with his bare hands, it would be troublesome. "You're welcome. Little brother, you've brought 18,000 spirit coins to the Yibao Pavilion in one go." Xing Yao smiled charmingly and then changed the topic. She moved her face closer to Lin Tian and said, "Of course, the most important thing is that big sister feels that we're fated to meet. Ordinary people don't get this kind of treatment." Under the black robe, Lin Tian felt that his cheeks were a little hot. Since he already got the money, Lin Tian didn't want to stay here any longer. He stood up and said to Pu Shi and Xing Yao, "Sorry, I still have some things to do, so I'll leave now." Xing Yao smiled and said, "Okay, big sister will order someone to send you. Remember to come often when you're free." Xing Yao clapped her hands, and the beautiful maid from before came in again. Under her command, the maid respectfully led Lin Tian out of the room and quickly disappeared in the corridor. Looking at Lin Tian's back, the charm on Xing Yao's face gradually disappeared. A 16-year-old array controlling master, it's really amazing. "Uncle Pu, do you know where he came from?" Xing Yao asked softly. Pu Shi shook his head. "I don't know." After thinking for a moment, Xing Yao said, "Do you want to check his background?" Pu Shi was shocked and quickly said, "Don't." "Why?" Xing Yao was puzzled. Pu Shi wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "Miss, think carefully. When that youth came to our Yibao Pavilion, he was covered in a black robe. Obviously, he didn't want anyone to know his identity. If we casually check his background, I'm afraid he'll be annoyed. That's not a good thing." Pausing, Pu Shi's expression became especially serious. "And miss, for a 16-year-old array controlling master to have such standards, don't you think he's too much of a monster? And if he himself is so monstrous, then how terrifying would the person who taught him the array controlling technique be?" One of the essential conditions for an array controlling master was to have a high-level array controlling master pass down the array patterns and guide them. Therefore, Pushi assumed that Lin Tian's array controlling technique must have been taught by someone. Uncle Pooh, you mean? Xing Yao's expression became serious. Pushi nodded. Don't casually check his identity. That youth seems to be easy to get along with, but the same can't be said for the teacher behind him. From the level of array controlling technique displayed by that youth, his teacher must be extremely terrifying. If we accidentally offend his teacher while investigating him, for our Bao pavilion, and even for the family behind us, it may cause unnecessary trouble. You have to know that those peak array controlling masters are simply the source of destruction. They can carve killing arrays in the void. Destroying a large family is not difficult at all. Hearing this, Xing Yao's expression became even more serious. Uncle Pooh's words are reasonable. This time, it was Xing Yao who was reckless. Xing Yao said. Pushi shook his head, smiling. Miss, you're still very young. You're only 2 years older than that youth. Compared to your peers, there aren't many who are more outstanding than you. So, miss, please don't mind it. The future is still long. This old man believes that Miss will definitely grow into an outstanding woman that the whole world looks up to. Uncle Pooh, don't make fun of me. Xing Yao stuck out her tongue as if she was acting coquettishly. But then, a strange light flashed in her eyes. After a moment of silence, she said, By the way, Uncle Pooh, when I was auctioning the 3 martial fusion runes, I seem to have discovered something interesting. Oh, what is it? Pushi was slightly puzzled. Xing Yao's beautiful eyes glowed. That guy seems to have some grudges with Fengjian City's Xiao family. Xing Yao then told him what happened at the auction. Pushi was shocked. There's actually such a thing. After a slight pause, the old man revealed a playful expression and snorted disdainfully. A mere small family of rich merchants dares to offend an array-controlling master. They really don't know what's good for them. Xing Yao supported her cheek with her left hand. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and her lazy appearance was even more charming. Grudges with the Xiao family? How interesting. When Lin Tian returned to the Marshall House's residence, the sky was about to darken. He went to the top pavilion and threw down a large pile of materials needed to inscribe runes. Then, he took out a small bottle of pills and a gorgeous long sword from under his black robe. 42,000 spirit coins. Now I have 37,000 spirit coins left. I'll return the 1,000 spirit coins from Sushu later. Lin Tian thought to himself. With enough spirit coins, he bought some super high-grade materials. Moreover, the pills and the long sword were not cheap, so he spent 5,000 spirit coins directly. However, the current Lin Tian did not care about this at all. 5,000 spirit coins were nothing to him now. The feeling of having money is really good. To be honest, Lin Tian was still a little excited when he suddenly had so many spirit coins. After the excitement, his heart was moved again. Thinking about it, it seemed that he should buy a few new sets of clothes for Lin Shi. 2 years ago, the Lin family's business was nibbled clean by the Xiao family. After that, the Lin siblings' lives became worse and worse. In the past 2 years, Lin Shi had suffered a lot. The clothes she was wearing now were very old, but even so, the little girl had never complained. Instead, she became even more obedient and sensible. Oh, I'll have to trouble Sushu with this matter. Thinking of Lin Shi, Lin Tian's eyes became very gentle. Taking a deep breath, Lin Tian operated the 4 extremes meridians. After 2 hours, he stopped cultivating and began to practice the spirit-gathering rune. In the next half a month, Lin Tian prepared to inscribe the spirit-gathering rune to complement his cultivation with pills. In half a month, he wanted to step into the 6th layer of the body refinement realm and cultivate the Shadow Fire Fist and Shocking Wind Sword art to the large success stage. Chapter 30. The spirit-gathering rune was of a much higher level than the martial fusion rune and was constructed from 7 basic runes. Therefore, the difficulty of creating it was naturally higher than the martial fusion rune. However, after having the experience of inscribing formation runes once, Lin Tian still felt more relaxed when creating the spirit-gathering rune this time. The failure rate was also much lower. Buzz! In the top pavilion, The last completed spirit-gathering rune flickered with a four-colored glow. The ink used to inscribe each formation rune was different. Therefore, different formation runes would often present different colors. The rounder the color, the stronger the formation rune. Conversely, the weaker it would be. Huff! Lin Tian let out a breath of turbid air and stretched lazily. Including the time spent comprehending the spirit-gathering rune, he had created a total of 5 spirit-gathering rune scrolls in 4 days. He had to admit that his improvement was huge. After carefully putting away the 5 completed spirit-gathering runes, Lin Tian did not start cultivating immediately. Instead, he walked down from the top pavilion, did some breathing exercises, and entered his room to rest. After 4 consecutive days of high-intensity training, his essence, spirit, and spirit had been severely depleted. If he were to cultivate now, he would definitely get half the results with twice the effort. Sharpening a knife would not delay the work of chopping firewood. He was very clear about this logic. Only with a good rest and a good spirit would one be able to cultivate faster. This time, Lin Tian slept from noon to night. When he woke up at night, he washed up seriously and went to the top pavilion. At this moment, stars flashed in the sky and specks of silver splendor scattered on the ground, looking holy and charming. Lin Tian opened up a spirit-gathering rune scroll and then took out a small jade bottle, pouring out an earthen yellow pill. This pill was called the body-tempering pill, and it was helpful for cultivators to temper their physique quickly. Of course, its effects could not be compared to the 9-shu essence pill that he had consumed previously. He carefully placed the pill in his hand into his mouth. Just like the previous time, the pill melted instantly after entering his mouth, turning into a liquid that flowed down his throat and into his stomach. Lin Tian sensed it slightly. Compared to the 9-shu essence pill, this body-tempering pill was far inferior in terms of taste and concentration of spirit force. Even so, his body still had a reaction, and there was a slight heat in his body. With a flash of light in his eyes, Lin Tian knew that he could begin. He pressed his right hand on the spirit-gathering rune scroll that he had prepared and said in a low voice, "Open." Buzz! In that instant, the spirit-gathering rune emitted a faint glow, and a ball of light enveloped Lin Tian. After a few breaths, Lin Tian clearly felt that the starlight falling from the sky had become several times denser, and the surrounding heaven and earth spirit chi had also become more turbulent, quickly condensing in his direction. The spirit-gathering rune can allow the astral powers and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to quickly gather near the runes and compress them, providing them for the cultivators near the runes to cultivate, increasing their cultivation speed. It's really amazing, Lin Tian thought, not daring to be careless. Lin Tian quickly revolved the 4 extreme scripture, using his true essence to guide the world's spiritual energy and the power of the stars into his body. Over and over again, he tempered his muscles and bones, tempering his flesh and blood. At the same time, he also revolved the divine one-soul tactic, using this divine tactic to temper his soul force. Lin Tian could clearly feel that his cultivation this time was much faster than 10 days ago. At this moment, the body-tempering pill had melted in his body, and the power of the pill flowed into every corner of his body, blending with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the astral powers. It greatly increased the effect of tempering his muscles, bones, and flesh, and his cultivation level was rising little by little. At this speed, I will definitely be able to step into the 6th level of the body refinement realm within 10 days. Lin Tian's eyes shone brightly. He closed his eyes, calmed his heart, and steadily and rapidly guided the power of the pill, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and the astral powers to temper his body. In this way, similar cultivation was carried out over and over again. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. On this day, in Greenwind Ridge, Fire Fist. In the ancient forest full of thorns, a cold shout rang out. Immediately, 18 crimson-red fists appeared in the sky. Each fist was as big as a bowl, and a thick ancient tree was smashed into pieces. Swoosh! 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 There were many vines in the ancient forest, and the gaps were extremely small. However, in this kind of environment, a figure was shuttling back and forth. Following this figure shuttling back and forth, from time to time, a fire fist would appear in the air, directly smashing the nearby ancient trees into pieces. One by one, the vines would explode and be burnt black. Extremely fast, extremely powerful. These were the two best words to describe this figure at this moment. Crack. As another ancient tree was smashed into pieces, the figure shuttling through the forest stopped. This person was Lin Tian. Wiping off the sweat on his forehead, Lin Tianwei smiled, very satisfied. Next, Lin Tian murmured. Suddenly, his eyes changed. His right hand reached back and grabbed the hilt of a gorgeous long sword behind his neck. Staring at a giant tree in front of him, he suddenly moved. He quickly ran to the front and then jumped up. Swoosh! A lightning-like sword light pierced through the sky. Lin Tian jumped over the giant tree in front of him, his right hand holding the hilt of the long sword behind his back. At this moment, the sword was still in the scabbard, as if he did not use it. However, at this moment, a slight friction sound was heard. Immediately, the giant tree broke from a height of 20 feet and crashed to the ground, making a loud bang when it came into contact with the ground. If there was anyone here, they would realize that the section of the giant tree where it broke was as smooth as a mirror, without any roughness. Lin Tian tilted his head and nodded with a smile. The second style of the shocking wind sword art, lightning sword, the sword was like a thunderbolt, killing with one strike. Its power was indeed amazing. After a pause, Lin Tian pulled out the long sword behind his back. Suddenly, a terrifying sword essence spread out. Clang! An ear-piercing sword sound was heard. Lin Tian raised the long sword in his hand, made a strange arc, and slashed down forcefully. Shocking wind sword. Following the cold shout, in an instant, silvery sword shadows appeared in the air. They were shockingly dense, directly forming an immortal sword screen. Ka! 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 The sword shadows fell, crisp sounds unceasingly. In front of him, the old trees, vines, boulders, everything that could be seen with the naked eye was almost completely destroyed. The space within a radius of 30 feet was instantly filled with dazzling jewels. Very good. Looking at his own results, Lin Tian revealed an extremely satisfied smile. In 10 days, Lin Tian consumed 4 body-tempering pills and 4 spirit-gathering rune scrolls, finally reaching the 6th level of body refinement. At the same time, he also cultivated the Shadow Fire Fist and the shocking wind sword art to the large success stage. His battle prowess increased by an unknown amount. Lin Tian believed that with his current battle prowess, he could even fight against a 7th level body refinement expert. Putting away his long sword, Lin Tian turned around and walked towards the 9-Yang martial house. Oh, it's about time to go to the Array Manipulator Guild to undergo the Array Manipulator Guild certification. Lin Tian muttered to himself. The scorching sun at noon was exceptionally scorching. Lin Tian was wrapped in a black robe. After asking a few people on the street for directions, he quickly arrived in front of a magnificent building. Looking up, at the top of the building, there was a huge sandalwood plaque. On it, there were 5 bold and powerful words. Array Manipulator Guild. I've arrived. This is the place, Lin Tian muttered. Looking around through the black robe, Lin Tian discovered that almost everyone who passed by would look at the guild in front of them with reverence. Of course, there were also some people who looked at Lin Tian. Because under the scorching sun, Lin Tian's attire was a bit strange. Slightly embarrassed, Lin Tian quickly walked into the Array Manipulator Guild. As soon as he entered the Array Manipulator Guild, he immediately felt that the air was much cooler. This made him a bit surprised. Around him, many people's gazes fell on him at this moment. Most of them were a bit strange, but even so, no one said anything. Hello, is there anything I can help you with? A waitress came up to welcome him. Although the waitress found Lin Tian's attire strange, she didn't care. On the contrary, the waitress's face was full of smiles. This was the Array Manipulator Guild. Many people who came in and out had high statuses. She couldn't afford to offend them. Therefore, no matter who it was, as long as they stepped into the Array Manipulator Guild, she would carefully receive them. Hello, I'm here for the Array Manipulator Guild certification. Lin Tian didn't beat around the bush. What? The waitress's eyes widened. Lin Tian spoke again. I'm here for the Array Manipulator Guild certification. You. The waitress was surprised that the voice coming from under the black robe was so young. She was even more glad that she had a good attitude because the person under the black robe was here for the Array Manipulator Guild certification. This kind of person, whether or not he succeeded in the end, was not someone she could afford to offend. In an instant, the waitress's attitude became respectful. She almost bowed as she said, "Please wait a moment. I will immediately inform Lord Gu." After saying that, the waitress quickly left. Lin Tian scanned the Array Manipulator Guild and found a huge stone plaque on the side. On it were densely engraved small words, all of which were related to array manipulators. Since he was here for the Array Manipulator Guild certification, Lin Tian didn't mind learning more about array manipulators. He immediately read it. Array manipulators use formation patterns as their life and formation patterns as their weapons. According to strength, array manipulators are divided into 9 ranks, from the lowest to the highest rank. Rank 1 to rank 5 array manipulators need to use ink to inscribe formation patterns. The higher the rank, the stronger the formation pattern. Rank 6 to rank 9 array manipulators don't need ink to inscribe formation patterns. Rank 9 array manipulators, in particular, can create ordinary formation patterns with just a thought. Illusion formations and killing formations can be set up with a wave of their hand. They have the power to destroy everything. Lin Tian read on word by word. He instantly understood the basics of array manipulators. This naturally included how the Array Manipulator Guild divided the ranks of array manipulators. This process, of course, was the first step. After passing the test, the guild would give the array manipulator a badge corresponding to their rank. This badge was made up of the Array Manipulator Guild's symbol and the array manipulator's rank. The symbol was a mysterious formation pattern, and the rank was determined by how many bars there were under the pattern. 1 bar represented a rank 1 array manipulator, 2 bars represented a rank 2 array manipulator, and so on. So that Pushi is a rank 2 array manipulator. Oh, just Feng Jian City alone is indeed very strong. Lin Tian thought inwardly. Right at this moment, the female attendant from before returned with a green-robed old man. Hello, this is our guild's Lord Gu. Lord Gu will be in charge of your array manipulator certification, the waitress said respectfully. Lin Tian looked up and saw the green-robed old man beside the waitress. His expression was indifferent, and he gave off a very old-fashioned feeling. Slightly lowering his head, Lin Tian saw the array manipulator's badge on the old man's chest. There were 2 golden bars under the pattern, exactly the same as Pushi's. Rank 2 array manipulator. Lin Tian thought inwardly. The green-robed old man looked at Lin Tian. Looking at Lin Tian's strange attire, he frowned slightly and asked, "Name, age?" Black robe, 16 years old. Lin Tian Dao. Naturally, he would not give his real name, so he used the fake name Black Robe instead. Beside him, the waitress's eyes widened in shock. 16 years old? She had been working in the Array Manipulator Association for quite some time now, and she had seen quite a few people come here for the Array Manipulator Association certification. Even the youngest of them was 28 years old, but now, the person in front of her was only 16 years old. Nonsense! At such a young age. Don't try to cause trouble here. The green-robed old man glared at Lin Tian. In the eyes of the green-robed elder, a 16-year-old who came to take the Array Controller certification was simply a troublemaker. Under the black robe, Lin Tian frowned slightly. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm really here to get my Array Manipulator certification. Chapter 31. Gu Zheng was the elder of the Array Manipulator Guild and supervisor Feng City. Today, he was studying a new array pattern in his room. When the female servant reported that someone had come for the array manipulator certification, Guzheng was somewhat expected. After all, there were too few array manipulators in Supervisor Feng City. But when he came out, he found that the person was only 16 years old. A 16-year-old boy coming for the array manipulator certification was simply ridiculous in Guzheng's eyes. He was just messing around. Get out! Don't disturb my work and disturb others, Guzheng said angrily. Under the black robe, Lin Tian's frown deepened. What was wrong with this old man? I'm really here for the certification. I'm definitely not here to cause trouble. Please help me with the certification, Lin Tian said. There were still many people in the Array Manipulator Guild. Naturally, they noticed the commotion. When they found out what was going on, they all laughed. Little guy, this is where you're wrong. If a 16-year-old kid like you can be certified as an array manipulator, then wouldn't the Northern Flame country be filled with array manipulators? Even if you're joking, you shouldn't come here. Yeah, this is the Array Manipulator Guild. It's a sacred place. Hurry up and go back. Don't cause trouble. Many people shook their heads. The Formation Manipulator Guild often sold special materials and issued missions. As such, there were always quite a few people gathered here. Even though these people weren't formation manipulators, after coming here often, they gradually gained a better understanding of formation manipulators. In their eyes, a 16-year-old formation manipulator was nothing short of a fantasy story. Under the black robe, Lin Tian was speechless. What was going on? Elder Gu, I'm really here for the certification. Please give me a chance. If I'm lying, you can punish me however you want, Lin Tian said sincerely. Guzheng glared at Lin Tian. He was even angrier. Get out, Guzheng shouted. Then, he flicked his sleeves and left. In the surroundings, everyone respectfully watched as Guzheng left. Then, they looked towards Lin Tian. Many people had smiles on their faces as they pointed at Lin Tian and shook their heads. That, sir, Elder Gu isn't free today. Do you think? The female attendant said cautiously. Under the black robe, Lin Tian shook his head. It's nothing. Sorry for the trouble. I'll leave now. Although it was a little unpleasant, the waitress was very polite from beginning to end. So how could Lin Tian vent his anger on her? Without hesitation, Lin Tian walked out of the Array Manipulator Association. Walking out of the Array Manipulator Guild, Zhang Xian was greeted by the sight of the scorching sun in the sky. Lin Tian was already very unhappy, and under the scorching sun, his mood was even worse. He cursed under his breath and quickened his pace. Bang! At this moment, someone walked in from the corner of the guild's outermost door and bumped into Lin Tian. Lin Tian staggered from the impact, and his mood immediately worsened. He steadied himself and raised his head to look ahead. The expression under the black robe suddenly froze. This was actually an acquaintance. Almost at the same time, a surprised voice came from the other side. It was a gray-robed old man with white hair and a white beard. On his chest was the symbol of the Array Manipulator Guild, with 2 golden bars under the pattern. Wasn't he the Bao Pavilion's Pushi? You're the little brother from half a month ago? Pushi asked tentatively. Although there were very few people wearing black robes in Supervisor Feng City, there was more than one. Therefore, Pushi wasn't 100% sure that the person in front of him was the youth who had auctioned the martial fusion pattern scroll at the Bao Pavilion half a month ago. Lin Tian nodded and said, Yes, it's me. A smile appeared on Pushi's face. He had guessed correctly. Looking at Lin Tian, he said with a smile, Little brother, you've already been certified as an array manipulator, right? What's your level? I don't think it's lower than this old man's. Seeing Lin Tian walk out of the Array Manipulator Guild, Pushi's first impression was that Lin Tian had been certified as an array manipulator. After all, the 3 martial fusion patterns Lin Tian had auctioned at the Bao Pavilion were astonishingly high. Lin Tian shook his head and said helplessly, Don't mention it. I was kicked out. What happened? Pushi frowned. Pushi had absolute confidence in Lin Tian's array manipulator skills. How could he be kicked out? Lin Tian didn't hide anything and told Pushi what had happened in the guild. Pushi burst out laughing when he heard that. So it's that old man Guzheng. Pushi laughed and looked at Lin Tian. Little brother, don't mind him. That old man is actually a good person. It's just that he's too old-fashioned and conservative. It just so happens that this old man came to the Array Manipulator Guild for some matters. Little brother, come with me. This time, I'll let that old man see how powerful you are. Under the black robe, Lin Tian thought for a moment and nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you, Elder Pushi. He said, It's fine. It's a small matter. Pushi waved his hand. Inside the Array Manipulator Guild, many people were gathered in twos and threes. They were either choosing materials or staring at the missions posted on the mission board. Many people were discussing in low voices. At this moment, outside the guild, an old man in gray robes and a black-robed man pushed open the door and entered. Creak! As such a voice rang out, many people turned their heads to look at it. It's that kid from before? Why is he back? Could it be that he wants to cause trouble again? If he causes trouble again, I'm afraid that Lord Guzheng will personally kick him out. Many people couldn't help but laugh. Hearing this, the black-robed Lin Tianyi was speechless. Next to him, Pushi was also stunned. It was at this point that some of the people in the Array Manipulator Association turned to look at Pushi. After a moment of shock, their faces fell. This is Lord Pushi, second stage Array Manipulator, honorary elder of the guild, manager of the Bao Pavilion. That Lord Pushi. Wait, that black-robed youth. Why is he standing with Lord Pushi? Although they're both in black robes, they shouldn't be the same person. Many people's expressions changed slightly. In Fengjian City, Pushi was undoubtedly a person of high status and status. Few people knew him, but there were countless people who knew him. Even the heads of the families in Fengjian City had to be respectful when they saw Pushi. In the guild, the female attendant from before was also shocked. She quickly walked toward Pushi. Elder Pushi. The female attendant's face was full of respect. Pushi smiled faintly in response. The female attendant tilted her head and looked at the black-robed man beside Pushi. She asked uncertainly, It's me. Sorry to disturb you again. Under the black robe, Lin Tianyi smiled. The female attendant's expression changed greatly. This youth knew Pushi. Almost at the same time, the other people in the guild were also shocked. Was this black-robed youth really the one who came to cause trouble? The female attendant felt a little dizzy. She bowed to Pushi and said, Lord Pushi, mister, please wait for a moment. I'll go and inform Lord Gu. The female attendant was really scared out of her wits. No need to go through so much trouble. Pushi waved his hand dismissively, then raised his head and shouted towards the Array Manipulator Association. Old man Gu, you old fogey, come out here. Pushi's little friend came to certify as an Array Manipulator. You actually dared to chase him out. If I don't see you in 3 breaths, this old man will directly smash your courtyard. Pooh! Many people in the guild were speechless. Was this really Lord Pushi? At the same time, these people were also shocked. This really was the black-robed youth who was chased out just now. He was actually related to Pushi. From the depths of the guild, the green-robed Guzheng rushed out. As soon as he came out, he glared at Pushi and shouted, Surnamed Pushi, why did you come here for no reason? After a short pause, Guzheng suddenly saw the black-robed youth beside Pushi. He frowned and said, You're that kid just now? Why are you here again? I'm here again, Lin Tiantan said indifferently. He really didn't have a good impression of this old man. Guzheng was slightly angry and was about to explode, but at this time, Pushi opened his mouth. Old man Gu, are you blind in your old age? You actually shut out such a genius Array Manipulator. If your president finds out, he'll definitely skin you alive. Guzheng was a little unhappy, but in the next moment, the old man frowned. You're his teacher? Guzheng asked Pushi. Pushi glanced at Lin Tianan and said with a bitter smile, Don't talk nonsense. I'm not qualified to be his teacher. Hua! As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the onlookers in the guild changed greatly. What's the matter with this black-robed youth? How could he make Lord Pushi say such words? This Many people were dumbfounded. Ge Zheng frowned again. He knew Pushi well and knew that Pushi was not the kind of person who would joke around. However, the age of the black-robed youth made him a little worried. He's only 16 years old, 16 years old. Can he pass? Ge Zheng still didn't believe it. Pushi's expression was calm as he said, whether or not he can pass, we'll know once he tries. Ge Zheng stared at Lin Tiantan. After a while, he snorted, Fine, Pushi, for your sake. I'll let him try. Ge Zheng then changed the topic and said, after the test, if he fails, don't blame me for being merciless. I'll personally throw him out. Sure, if he really can't pass the test, you can throw me out too. Pushi said, but then he laughed. But, old man, what if he passes? What will you do then? Ge Zheng frowned. What do you want? Pushi smiled faintly. A few days ago, didn't you buy 100 spirits grass from the exchange pavilion? You haven't refined it yet, right? If my little friend passes the test, you can give him the 100 spirits grass. What do you think? Hua! Hearing this, the surrounding people were all shocked. Chapter 32. When Pushi mentioned the 100 spirit grass, Ge Zheng's face suddenly became unnatural. His old face twitched slightly. The 100 spirit grass was a rare spirit herb. He had spent a total of 80,000 spirit coins to buy it. Although array manipulators earn money like drinking water, 80,000 spirit coins was obviously not a simple drop of water. He could not be careless. Most importantly, Ge Zheng knew Pushi very well. When he saw Pushi's confident expression and chuckle, he was immediately shaken. Could it be that the youth in the black robe in front of him could really pass the test? What's wrong, old man? You don't dare? Pushi laughed. Ge Zheng's old face turned red. He said angrily, Why wouldn't I dare? I'll take your joke. Thinking about it, a 16-year-old array manipulator was simply a fantasy. He was unwilling to believe it. Okay, then let's begin. Pushi laughed. Seeing Pushi and Ge Zheng open a bet, and the center of the bet was still himself, Lin Tian was also somewhat speechless. However, although he was somewhat speechless, he did not feel the slightest pressure. With his current level of array manipulation, he could definitely easily pass the Array Manipulator Association certification test. Ge Zheng snorted and said to the female attendant, Prepare the materials. Yes, Elder. The female attendant responded. Seeing this scene, many onlookers in the association looked over. Many of them had excited expressions on their faces. The Array Manipulator Association certification test was extremely rare. It was not something that could be seen often. The female attendant walked into the depths of the association. Not long after, she took out 3 starter scrolls and 3 martial fusion rune inks. Ge Zheng looked at Lin Tian and snorted. The association has already prepared the starter scrolls and martial fusion rune inks. Since Pushi is your guarantor, then fine. Today, I'll even waive the certification fee for you. You only need to inscribe an inferior martial fusion rune and you'll pass. I'll give you 3 chances. The path of formation runes was broad and profound. The same formation runes, when inscribed by array manipulators of different levels, would often result in different results. Therefore, generally speaking, the same formation runes would be divided into 3 levels: superior, intermediate, and inferior. Low grade was naturally the lowest grade, and the martial fusion rune itself was the most basic formation rune. Thus, inscribing a low-grade martial fusion rune could be considered as barely reaching the passing line for a rank 1 formation controller. Under the black robe, Lin Tian was a bit displeased. Although being able to inscribe an inferior martial fusion marking was already considered to have truly passed the formation manipulator certification test, when he heard the azure-robed old man's words, it was obvious that he still didn't believe him. Since it was like this again and again, he immediately became angry. Sweeping his gaze over the initial scroll and the ink that the female attendant was carrying, he spoke in a calm voice. Martial rune fusion seems to be too simple. In order to prevent Elder Ge from saying that I barely passed, let's change the content of the examination in advance. I'll draw the spirit gathering rune. 1 chance is enough. What? As soon as these words came out, Everyone's expression changed. Even Pushi was moved. The spirit-gathering rune was of a much higher level than the martial fusion rune. Ignorant brat, don't spout nonsense. Guzheng glared and shouted. Even I, a rank 2 formation controller, have some difficulty inscribing the spirit-gathering rune. You're so young, yet you dare to say that you want to participate in this examination with the spirit-gathering rune? Isn't it better for you if I fail the examination? Lin Tiantan said calmly. You! Guzheng was instantly enraged. He was so angry that his beard was curling up. Lin Tian couldn't be bothered with Guzheng anymore. He walked to the side and wrote down a list of materials. After that, he walked up to the female attendant and said, "Can you help me prepare these materials? I'm not very clear about where you place the materials here. Of course, I'll buy these materials myself. I'll pay for them later." The female attendant didn't know if she should agree or not. She tilted her head and looked at Guzheng. "Prepare them for him." Guzheng snorted. The female attendant hurriedly nodded and took the list from Lin Tian's hands. She said respectfully, "Please wait a moment." The entire guild fell silent for a moment. Pushi walked to Lin Tian's side and said softly, "Little brother, are you really confident?" To be honest, the drawing of the spirit-gathering rune is indeed very difficult. Even I have to expend a lot of effort before I can complete it. Don't worry, old Pushi. There's no problem. Lin Tian Dao. Seeing how confident Lin Tian was, Pushi also felt slightly relieved. At this moment, the female attendant walked back. She had already chosen the materials according to Lin Tian's request. "Many thanks," Lin Tian said softly. In order to encourage those who had yet to pass the Array Manipulator Master certification test, but were still working hard to cultivate the art of controlling formations, the Array Manipulator Association's test was held in the main hall of the association. Everyone in the association could bear witness. After receiving the materials from the female attendant, Lin Tian walked straight to the Array Manipulator Master's certification test platform. Starter Scroll, Soul Tooth Grass, Golden Armor Root, Spirit Fire Ape's Blood Essence, Frost Breaking Stone, Dark Leaf Sand. Lin Tian's expression was calm as he laid them out one by one. "Let's begin. The time limit is 4 hours. I want to see how you're going to draw the Spirit Gathering rune." Guzheng snorted. As his words fell, everyone in the association looked at the test platform in unison. Under the black robe, Lin Tian took a light breath. He placed his right hand on the test platform and spun in an arc. His palms slapped the surface of the platform. Instantly, the Soul Tooth Grass, Golden Armor Root, Frost Breaking Stone, and Dark Leaf Sand flew into the air. This move immediately shocked everyone present. "Brilliant!" Someone couldn't help but whisper. In front of the test platform, Lin Tian, who was under the black robe, had a calm expression. He channeled his true essence and instantly crushed the 4 materials. Immediately after obtaining the mixture of the 4 materials, he waved his left hand. The Spirit Fire Ape's Blood Essence flew over and quickly merged with the mixture. At this moment, he began to channel his soul force. This is... Guzheng and Pushi were instantly shocked. They both sensed Lin Tian's tyrannical and pure soul force. Such a level of soul force had completely surpassed them. He's only 16 years old. How can he have such a strong soul force? This isn't normal. Guzheng was shocked. Different from martial Dao talent, soul force could grow stronger as one's age and cultivation level increased. Usually, the soul force of a young person was more average. But now, the soul force that Lin Tian displayed stunned Guzheng and Pushi. How could this be the soul force that a 16-year-old youth possessed? This, I'm not sure either. Pushi smiled bitterly, looking at Lin Tian in front of the test platform. Even though Pushi was originally full of confidence, he was still shocked at this moment. This youth is too monstrous. How terrifying is the teacher behind him? Pushi thought to himself. Just as Pushi and Guzheng were still in shock, Lin Tian had already completed the concoction of the ink used to inscribe the Spirit Gathering rune. A fist-sized liquid floated in the air, shining with 4 colors. So beautiful, crystal clear this, many people were moved. Looking at this scene, Ge Zheng's expression became unnatural again. There were even beads of perspiration on his forehead. In front of the test platform, Lin Tian, under the black robe, was completely focused. He did not place the ink on the ground. Instead, he grabbed it with his right hand and wrapped it with his true core force and soul force. After that, his left hand shook and an initiation scroll flew over. Under the control of his true core force, the scroll opened on its own and spread out on the test platform. Wong! As the light flashed, Lin Tian focused and pressed his right hand down. He activated the Heavenly One Soul technique. His soul force surged like the Yellow River. Together with his true core force, he guided the ink on the initiation scroll. In an instant, 2 perfect runes appeared. After that, he flicked his 5 fingers. Suddenly, 5 different runes appeared at the same time. This is 5 fingers moving at the same time. Could this be the legendary hand seal? 5 Dragon God Flash. Ge Zheng was shocked. Puxi was dumbstruck. Both of them were second-tier array manipulators, so they were relatively familiar with the hand seals used by array manipulators. Generally speaking, the majority of array manipulators would use a single finger to inscribe an array. The slightly more skilled ones would use 2 fingers, and the strongest ones would use 3 fingers. But right now, Lin Tian was actually using 5 fingers to inscribe an array. With 5 fingers moving at the same time, the speed of carving runes would naturally be faster. If one could carve with 5 fingers at the same time, the connection between the different runes would be more compatible, and the level of the runes would be higher. At this moment, looking at Lin Tian's movements, Puxi and Ge Zheng's expressions froze. Almost at the same time, in the association, even some of the outsiders were stunned. Then, everyone's eyes lit up. What an elegant finger technique. This young man seems to be able to do it. No problem. He can do it. Many people murmured. At the start, these people didn't think highly of Lin Tian and felt that Lin Tian was here to create trouble. Later on, because of Puxi, they were a little more surprised by Lin Tian. But now, these people were completely won over by Lin Tian's skills. Many people were shouting in their hearts, hoping that Lin Tian would succeed. Time passed by very quickly. There was silence everywhere. At this moment, everyone had a tacit understanding to not make a single sound. They were worried that it would affect the young man in black robes who was diligently carving the spirit gathering rune. Just like that, an hour passed very quickly. Condense! Just then, a clear shout rang out. Following a flash of light, everything calmed down. Under the black robes, Lin Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His essence, energy, and spirit relaxed. Reaching out his right hand and holding the other end of the scroll, he lifted the spirit-gathering rune scroll that he had just finished carving and presented it to Ge Zheng. He said calmly, "Elder Ge, are you satisfied?" Looking at the spirit-gathering rune in their field of vision, everyone was stunned. The perfect drawing of the runes and the precise matching of the stripes. Although the spirit-gathering rune, which was formed from the 7 basic runes, was only about 1 inch in diameter, it gave off a majestic feeling as if it could attract endless spiritual light. The entire association was dead silent. At this moment, everyone could even hear the heartbeats of others. They could even hear the sound of others breathing. Clap, clap, clap. After a very long time, applause rang out. Looking at Lin Tian, who was wrapped in black robes, Ge Zheng broke into a bitter smile. "I've lost. I'm convinced." Chapter 33. Ge Zheng was convinced. If it was said that Lin Tian's tyrannical spirit force had already caused Ge Zheng to be moved, then the way he inscribed the formation with 5 fingers had truly caused Ge Zheng to be convinced. At this moment, not only Ge Zheng, but everyone in the association was stunned. All of them were immersed in the spirit-gathering rune that Lin Tian had inscribed. He actually managed to inscribe it. Even a second-tier formation controller would have to spend a lot of effort to inscribe this rune. This, someone mumbled to himself. Many people felt their faces heating up. At the start, when Lin Tian came to be certified as a formation controller, everyone had made fun of Lin Tian, thinking that he was here to cause trouble. But now, this person they thought was here to cause trouble actually managed to inscribe a spirit-gathering rune. Moreover, it was perfect. Pushi was also astonished. But very soon, this old man laughed out loud. "Old fellow, how is it?" Pushi looked at Guzheng with a teasing look on his face. With a lonely smile, Guzheng shook his head repeatedly. "I've lost. I've completely lost." During the entire process of inscribing the spirit-gathering rune, Lin Tian completed it in one go without any sloppiness. That calmness and carefreeness caused Guzheng to gasp in amazement. Taking 3 steps back, under the astonished gazes of everyone, Guzheng did something that no one expected. He actually bowed toward Lin Tian. Under the black robe, Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. The female attendant was greatly shocked. Elder. Guzheng was an elder of the Formation Controller Association and had a respected status. Right now, he was actually bowing to a 16-year-old young man. Shaking his head, Lin Tian took a step forward and stopped him. "All right, don't be like this. You're an elder." In the beginning, Lin Tian was indeed very displeased with Guzheng. However, he gradually realized that what Pushi said outside the guild was true. Guzheng was just a little old-fashioned and stubborn, but he wasn't a bad person. Just by looking at Guzheng's current actions, it was enough to prove that. Before this, Guzheng must have really thought that he was here to cause trouble. After all, under normal circumstances as a formation controller, he was indeed too young. A mistake is a mistake. It has nothing to do with age. This old man apologizes to you for what happened earlier. Guzheng snorted coldly and insisted on bowing. Under the black robe, Lin Tian was speechless. This old man was really stubborn. "Old man, do you think an apology is enough? Where is the 100-spirit grass?" Pushi leaned over and squinted his eyes at Guzheng. "You won't go back on your word, right?" Guzheng was enraged. Although I, Guzheng, am sometimes muddle-headed, I have never been a villain." The old man was enraged and rushed into the depths of the guild. Not long after, he took out a small jade bottle. Inside the small jade bottle was a strange plant that was about an inch long. It had 3 leaves and looked very strange. "Take it." Guzheng waved his hand and threw the jade bottle to Lin Tian. Catching the small jade bottle that Guzheng tossed over, Lin Tian was slightly embarrassed under the black robe. "You're welcome. Take it. This old man doesn't lack money," Pushi said. Lin Tian pondered for a moment. The other party was a Tier 2 array manipulator, as well as an elder of the Array Manipulator Guild. Looking at Guzheng, Lin Tian smiled. "Then I'll have to thank Senior." Not long after, he would enter the 7th level of the body refinement realm. At that time, he would have to start tempering his organs. With this 100-spirit grass, his cultivation speed would definitely be faster, and the tempering effect would be better. "Since I won the bet, it's yours. What's there to thank me for?" Guzheng snorted. Under the black robe, Lin Tian wanted to laugh. He could guess that this old man must be feeling very uncomfortable right now. Pushi laughed loudly, not caring about Guzheng's slightly ugly expression. After this, Pushi looked at Lin Tian with a solemn expression. "Little brother, when you were inscribing the spirit-gathering rune earlier, the inscribing hand seal you used, was it the legendary 5-dragon divine flash?" Hearing Pushi mention this name, Guzheng's expression also turned serious as he stared at Lin Tian. Under the black robe, Lin Tian was stunned, then nodded. "It's the 5-dragon divine flash." He did not really understand what Pushi meant by legendary, but the inscribing hand seal he used was indeed called the 5-dragon divine flash. It was something he had sorted out from the information in his mind. Pushi and Guzheng looked at each other and both gasped. Although they had already confirmed that the hand seal Lin Tian used was the legendary inscribing method, when they heard Lin Tian admit it himself, they could not help but be shocked. 5-dragon divine flash, the legendary inscribing method. I didn't expect to see it with my own eyes one day. Pushi mumbled. Guzheng smiled bitterly and looked at Pushi. "Now I believe that you are definitely not his teacher. You're not worthy." Pushi did not mind Guzheng's sarcasm at all. I've already said that I'm not qualified to be his teacher. Pushi shook his head and looked at Guzheng. All right, old man. You should know what level my little friend is at. Why aren't you taking out the level insignia? Guzheng nodded. I prepared it when I went to get the 100 spirit grass. Saying so, Guzheng took out the insignia of an array manipulator. Seeing this coat of arms, many people's eyes lit up, and their faces were filled with awe. This insignia was the symbol of an array manipulator status. Those who could wear this kind of insignia were all experts. There was not a single person here who did not dream of being able to wear this kind of insignia one day. Pushi glanced at the insignia Guzheng took out and frowned. Old man, this is a level 2 insignia. Do you think he's only at level 2? Of course I know. According to his level, he should be at level 3. Guzheng smiled bitterly. But our small branch does not have the qualifications to give out insignia above level 2. Only the Imperial City's Array Manipulator Guild can. Pushi was stunned, but then he understood. It's like this. I forgot about it. Taking the level 2 Array Manipulator insignia from Guzheng and handing it to Lin Tian, Pushi said, Little brother, you heard it. If you have the chance, go to the Imperial City's Array Manipulator Guild. Elder Siepu. Lin Tian took the level 2 Array Manipulator insignia and put it away. Okay, this matter has come to an end. This old man has taken what he wanted, so I'll go back. Pushi smiled and then looked at Lin Tian. Little brother, do you still have something to do? If not, come with this old man. There's nothing else? Lin Tian Dao. Pushi smiled faintly and greeted Guzheng before leaving with Lin Tianyi. Inside the guild, everyone's eyes were filled with respect as they watched the two leave. Especially when they looked at the black-robed Lin Tian, their expressions were filled with reverence. A 16-year-old array manipulator, and his skill in controlling arrays was even higher than Pushi and Guzheng. His future achievements would definitely be terrifying. Wait! At this moment, a voice rang out. Pushi and Lin Tian stopped their footsteps and turned their heads around. Old man, what's the matter? Pushi asked. The person who called out was none other than Guzheng. Guzheng stared at Lin Tian, and for a moment, he was a little embarrassed. He stammered, Under the black robe, Lin Tian was a little confused. Pushi stared blankly at Guzheng. Then, as if he thought of something, he narrowed his eyes. Old man, if you have something to say, then say it. If not, we're leaving. Guzheng's old face was slightly red. He looked at Lin Tian and said, That little brother in black robe, right? Are you interested in joining our Array Manipulator Guild? Under the black robe, Lin Tian was stunned. Join? I haven't joined yet? In his opinion, since he had been certified by the Array Manipulator Guild, he had already joined the guild. Just now it was just a rank test. Passing the test is one thing, and joining the guild is another. Let's put it this way. Some people are array manipulators and have been certified, but they don't belong to the Array Manipulator Guild because they didn't choose to join. Of course, such people are very rare. Most array manipulators choose to join the Array Manipulator Guild after passing the test. Pushi explained. Lin Tian's array manipulator skill was extremely high, but he didn't know much about the basics of being an array manipulator. Pushi didn't find it strange. Instead, he paid more attention to Lin Tian. In Pushi's opinion, Lin Tian's teacher must be one of those peak hidden experts. This kind of person usually only taught their disciples the art of array manipulation and didn't mention anything else that wasn't necessary. That was why Lin Tian was so confused about the Array Manipulator Guild. Lin Tian thought for a moment and asked Guzheng, compared to those array manipulators who haven't joined the guild, what's special about those who have joined? Guzheng's face lit up with joy. Array manipulators who join the Array Manipulator Guild can rely on completing the guild's Array Manipulator missions to accumulate points. Then, they can use the points to exchange for some special materials. These special materials are often extremely important for engraving arrays, but they can't be bought with money. At the same time, array manipulators who join the guild can receive a generous amount of spirit coins every month for free. In addition, they also have some other rights. Guzheng quickly said, Of course, apart from the first point, The rest is related to the array manipulator's rank and status. Under the black robe, Lin Tianwei's expression changed slightly. He didn't really care about the spirit coins he received, but the special materials were indeed a problem. In the past few days, after absorbing the knowledge in his mind, he knew that some special materials were really hard to buy with money. If he joined the Array Manipulator Guild, this problem would be solved. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Then, after joining the guild, what do I have to do? Will there be restrictions on my personal freedom?" You don't have to do anything special. Moreover, anyone who joins the Array Manipulator Guild is free. Little brother, you can rest assured about this, Ge Zheng hurriedly said. Lin Tianwei was slightly surprised. It's that simple? On the side, Pushi teased, "Actually, this old man has other motives. He wants a genius array manipulator like you to join the guild, which will greatly benefit the guild's development. For example, if there are some extremely difficult array manipulator missions, if there are powerful array manipulators, they can quickly and easily solve them. So, for a genius like you to join the guild, the large-scale Array Manipulator Guild will give out some rewards. Of these rewards, of course, he doesn't care about money. He's mainly interested in those high-level Array Manipulator Guild runes. He's a formation fanatic." Hearing this, Lin Tian was speechless. Chapter 34. Lin Tian pondered for a moment. Joining the guild wouldn't affect him much. On the contrary, it wasn't a bad idea to occasionally come to the guild and do some missions in exchange for some special materials. Moreover, he could receive a sum of spirit coins every month for free. "All right, I'll join," he said. Hearing this, Ge Zheng was pleasantly surprised. "Xiao Fei, quickly record this little brother's information," Ge Zheng said to the female attendant, but then he shook his head and said excitedly, "I'll do it myself." Lin Tian. This old man was like a child at this moment. Just like before, Lin Tian's name in the guild was still Black Robe. Ge Zheng didn't look into this. The guild wouldn't investigate the identity of an array manipulator, so it didn't matter if it was their real name or not. "All right." After recording everything, Ge Zheng laughed. Pushi teased, "Look at how excited you are at such an old age." Ge Zheng laughed dryly and didn't explain anything. The Array Manipulator Certification exam was over. Lin Tian didn't plan to stay any longer. He didn't have much time left, so he had to go back and cultivate. After exchanging a few words with Ge Zheng, Pu Shi and Ge Zheng walked out of the Array Manipulator Guild. All around them, everyone looked at the two of them with a face full of respect. "Little brother, are you free? Why don't you go to the Yi Bao Pavilion?" Pushi asked with a smile as they walked out. Lin Tian's voice came from under the black robe. "Thank you for your hospitality, Elder Pushi, but I can't for now. I have some other things to do. When I'm free, I'll definitely visit your pavilion." "All right, come anytime." Pushi smiled. After seeing Lin Tian's exquisite array manipulation technique, Pushi was even more certain that Lin Tian had a terrifying teacher behind him. Naturally, he paid more attention to Lin Tian. The two chatted as they walked out. Right at this moment, the doors of the Array Manipulator Guild were slammed open with a bang. Two blood-soaked figures, one old and one young, rushed in. One of them was holding a white-clothed woman in his arms. The woman's white clothes were also dyed red with blood. Someone come! Quickly!" One of the young men roared. The smell of blood floated in the air, causing many people to frown. However, when they saw the other person beside the young man, everyone's expression changed. They all revealed expressions of disbelief. Even Pushi and Ge Zheng were no exception. "General Ji?" Pushi was surprised. Of the two people who broke into the guild, one of them was wearing a luxurious robe and was about 18 years old, while the other was wearing a pure gold armor and was slightly older than Pushi and Ge Zheng. His whole body was covered in blood. It was precisely this person who caused Pushi and Ge Zheng, who were also rank 2 array masters, to be moved. They both went forward to meet him. Seeing their expressions, Lin Tian was a little confused and asked the waitress next to her, "Who is this person?" The female servant was surprised that Lin Tian did not know who this person was. However, she still explained politely with a look of reverence. General Ji Yuanshan has been fighting on the battlefield for decades. He has blocked the enemy's army countless times. Half of the reason why Beiyin is so peaceful today is because of General Ji. Lin Tian's expression changed. So that was the case. No wonder everyone here was so shocked when they saw this person. General, what happened? Why are you here? Also, this is... Ge Zheng was shocked. Looking at Ji Yuanshan, who was covered in blood, Ge Zheng was shocked. Ji Yuanshan was already 80 years old this year, but his face was still ruddy. His eyes were as deep as the starry sky, and his whole body exuded a fierce fighting spirit. At the same time, it was mixed with a sense of righteousness. Ji Yuanshan did not recognize Ge Zheng and Pushi, but when he saw the Array Master emblem on their chests, his expression changed. Both of you, please save her. Ji Yuanshan's voice was old and low, but it could not hide the anxiety in it. He held a woman in white in his arms. The woman's abdomen was blood red, and her breath was very weak. This is... Pushi's pupils shrank. My granddaughter Ji Yuanshan's voice was low, and there was a strong murderous intent in his words. When she was rushing back to the imperial city from the border, she was unexpectedly ambushed by the enemy. Although the enemy was completely annihilated, at this point, everyone immediately understood what was going on. There were 8 generals in Beiyin, but the only one who could be called general was Ji Yuanshan. To Beiyin's enemy, Ji Yuanshan was an absolute eyesore. Therefore, there were often assassinations. Damn, those enemy barbarians. How dare they do this again and again? A warrior said angrily. Ji Yuanshan's voice was low. He looked at Pushi and Ge Zheng and said sincerely, both of you are Array Masters. Please save her. Facing the assassination of the enemy, Ji Yuanshan himself was not seriously injured. However, Ji Yu, who came to greet him, was unfortunately seriously injured. Because it was very close to Fengjian and Ji Yu was seriously injured, Ji Yuanshan directly carried Ji Yu and rushed to Fengjian City, hoping to borrow the power of the Array Master Association in Fengjian City to stabilize Ji Yu's injury. After all, the Array Masters were very capable and had dabbled in many aspects. General, don't be anxious. Put Miss Ji down first, Pushi said. Ji Yuanshan nodded and carefully put down the girl in his arms. At this time, everyone saw the woman's appearance clearly. They were all shocked. Even Lin Tian, under the black robe, could not help but be moved. The woman was about 16 years old. Her black hair was soft and smooth, and her eyelashes were fine. Although her face was very pale, it could not hide her beautiful face. Everyone's eyes lit up. There is such a beautiful woman in this world. Lin Tian was slightly surprised. At this time, Ge Zheng walked forward with a solemn expression and examined the girl's injuries. Ge Zheng was an Array Master. The Array Master's methods were varied and terrifying. They could kill and save people. After a while, Ge Zheng's face sank. How is it? Ji Yuanshan asked in a low voice. Ge Zheng shook his head. His face was not very good. Pushi also walked forward and checked. After a while, he also shook his head. Her injury is too serious, and she lost too much blood. I'm afraid, Pushi said in a low voice. Hearing this, Ji Yuanshan suddenly trembled. His whole person seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. I said that in such a small place, there can't be any capable person. The young man who came with Ji Yuanshan said, General Ji, let's quickly return to the Imperial City. We can't waste any more time in this small place. Our Lung family has a brilliant doctor. When the time comes, Xiaoyu will be cured. Ji Yuanshan was slightly disappointed. He nodded and was about to leave with the girl. Wait. At this time, Pushi stopped Ji Yuanshan and said, General, the two of us are indeed powerless, but this little friend may be able to. Pushi pointed to Lin Tian next to him. Lin Tian was speechless. How did he get involved again? Ji Yuanshan stopped and did not care about Lin Tian's strange attire. He asked Pushi, Really? This old man can't be 100% sure, But this little brother is far more powerful than me and Guzheng. Pushi said. Ji Yuanshan's eyes flashed. Not only was he powerful, but he also knew a lot of other things. He knew that Pushi and Guzheng were both second-stage array masters. Their strength was extremely rare. But at this moment, Pushi said that there was someone here who was more powerful than him and Guzheng. This immediately gave Ji Yuanshan a glimmer of hope. At this time, Guzheng also looked at Lin Tian. His face was somewhat serious. He said seriously, "Little brother Black Robe, do you have a solution? If you have a way, please help me." Guzheng was somewhat old-fashioned and stubborn. It was because of this that Guzheng had always admired General Ji Yuanshan. At this moment, Ji Yuanshan's only granddaughter was seriously injured. He naturally hoped that the other party could be saved. For a time, everyone's eyes fell on Lin Tian again. Through the black robe, Lin Tian looked at the girl in Ji Yuanshan's arms and frowned. In real time, since Ji Yuanshan put the girl down, he had been observing her injuries. He already had a way to deal with it, but the process would be slightly awkward. "Little brother, do you have a solution?" Ji Yuanshan said in a low voice. His only granddaughter was seriously injured and dying. Although Ji Yuanshan appeared calm, he was incomparably anxious. For a time, the surroundings were quiet. After 3 breaths, under Ji Yuanshan's slightly surprised gaze, Lin Tian nodded and said from under the black robe, "I can save her." But at this point, Lin Tian seemed a little hesitant. "But what?" Ji Yuanshan was slightly puzzled. Suddenly, he understood and said in a low voice, "Little brother, what do you want? As long as I, Ji Yuanshan, have it, I'll give it to you." Lin Tian shook his head. "That's not what I mean." "Then what is it?" Ji Yuanshan frowned. All around, everyone looked at Lin Tian. "Little brother, time is precious. If you have any concerns, just say it and we can discuss it together." Pushi said. Although he had not known Lin Tian for long and did not even know Lin Tian's appearance and real name, Pushi knew that Lin Tian was definitely not the kind of person who would take advantage of the situation to covet something. Lin Tian thought for a moment and nodded lightly. A voice came from under the black robe. "I have a formation pattern that can work with the spirit gathering pattern and forcibly inject the spirit chi of heaven and earth into her body to heal her injuries. However," after a pause, Lin Tiandao continued, "however, she needs to bear the formation pattern naked." "What?" Hearing this, Pushi and Guzheng's expressions changed slightly. On the other side, Ji Yuanshan frowned, and his face immediately sank. The meaning of bearing the formation pattern naked was obvious. It was to have Ji take off all her clothes and use her naked body as the initial scroll to bear the formation pattern and talisman network. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.